calling the Board of Adjustments meeting for Marvin Tuesday, April 21st, 2026 to order. We do barely have a quorum, so if I could get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All in favor? Oh, we don't actually need that. Thank you. There you go, Marcus. Thank you. All right. Adoption of the previous minutes. Anyone have any questions, changes? We didn't really, the last previous minutes was just calling in, calling out, right?
I think so.
Yep. Could I get a motion to adopt, please?
So moved.
All in favor? Now we need to elect officers for the Board of Adjustments, not the Planning Board, the Board of Adjustments.
So your nominating procedure, the board members are now freely able to nominate someone for the position of chair. So are there any nominations for the position of chair for the Board of Adjustment?
I nominate Kelly Case.
Okay, John Jones nominates Kelly. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Marcus as vice chair.
We're doing chair first.
Just kidding. Just want to get it over with.
Any other nominations for chair? Hearing none. Technically, everyone has to vote, so all's in favor of Kelly?
Aye.
I guess I have to vote.
All right, so Kelly is chair. Same thing for vice chair, nominations.
I'll make a motion to nominate Marcus.
So Kelly has nominated Marcus. Any other nominations? Hearing none. Everyone vote for Marcus?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so Marcus is vice chair.
All right, do we actually have a hearing of cases
No.
today? Okay, then moving on to other business, consider adoption of amended Board of Adjustment Rules of Procedure.
So really fast, we've been working on these for forever. The Board of Adjustment Rules Procedure, I think, were last amended in 2012. So very far out of date. They were not in line, they were not consistent with the Marvin Development Ordinance and some, in 160D and some updated state language in the general statutes. This has all been attorney reviewed and is recommended for approval, and council has already given their thumbs up.
Okay, then do we need to amend?
Yes, you need a motion for approval.
Okay, so the motion, sorry, I'm still trying to get into eScribe. So the motion then is to adopt the amended Board of Adjustment Rules of Procedure.
Correct. To adopt the Board of Adjustment Rules of Procedure as amended.
So
Anyone
moved.
like to make that motion?
Chris?
All right, Chris
Okay.
makes the motion.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
That's
so
all the business for the Board
so
of Adjustment.
moved. So I am, can I get a motion to adjourn the Board of Adjustment meeting?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So
And the
moved.
time
Moving
is
on.
6:11.
Now I'm calling the Planning Board, meeting of Tuesday, 21st? Yep, Tuesday, April 21st, 2026 to order. We do need to consider, oh, yes, Kristen, please join us. Are you sitting in front of the right name? Yes, okay. Everyone's in their assigned seats. We need to consider allowing remote participation. We have Mark Wetherington on video. So basically what has to happen in order for Mark to participate and for his vote to count, we as a board need to make a motion to allow him to participate remotely and then approve it. So that is what we're looking for now is for someone to make a motion to allow him to participate remotely.
So moved.
All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Mark, I'm sorry, this is the first time we're meeting and learning of you, so we are looking forward to meeting you in person. But you can participate remotely.
Okay, thanks.
So adoption of the previous minutes.
The agenda.
John, sorry, adoption of the agenda as presented. Anyone have any questions or changes? And if not, please make a motion.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. All right, now adoption of the previous minutes. Has everyone had a chance, everyone who was actually a member of the planning board for these minutes? How does that work? 2 of the members were not present, or planning board, 3 of the members were not planning board
The entire board
members.
gets to vote on the minutes. These have already been adopted as presented by the council.
So, anyone changes,
No.
questions, comments? Okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt the previous minutes as presented. All in, second? Gotta get a, no second. God, it's like the second thing is like, it's so ingrained after years of asking for a second.
All in favor?
All in favor, thank you. God, I had a mini stroke there. All right, moving on, thank you. All right, now we're election of officers. I feel like we just did this.
Same thing we just did, nominations for chair.
I nominate Kelly Cates.
Anyone else like to nominate another person?
Okay, vote.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Kelly
All
is
right.
chair.
And nominations for vice chair, since we have lost our, well, not lost,
I-
but
I
we've lost our
nominate
dear friend.
Marcus. He's the second to Chair Cates. He's the most senior member of the board.
He's the closest in proximity to me, so he cannot leave. Any other nominations?
I would just like to consider Chris Day, as he served not only on planning board in Pearl River, New York, but he also served on council, so he has extensive governance experience.
Okay.
All right, how does this work now?
Now now we go around the horn and every member states who they want to vote for. So, John,
Marcus.
Kelly,
Marcus for now, yeah, Marcus. I
For
know,
now.
you're like,
Who you voting for? Marcus. I'm going to vote for Chris. But I like Marcus too.
and
Well, I like Marcus, but I'm gonna vote for Chris.
all right,
just
so
3-2, Marcus is
Yeah.
vice chair.
Marcus carries. And I will
Oh,
say
wait,
that,
Mark,
what?
actually, Mark does get to vote
Oh,
on
Mark,
this.
yes.
We'll go with Marcus.
All right, thank
Okay.
you, Mark. Chris, not to diminish all the work, I just would like to know who you are, first. We don't really know anything about you, so.
It is what it is. You don't have to agree with that at all.
But we are looking for,
Support the decision of the
we are looking for your leadership. Looking forward to it. All right. We are now moving on to public comment. If you have signed the public comment form at the front, or if you've signed it on purpose or accidentally, if you've signed it accidentally, just let us know when we call your name.
We have two speakers. First up is Kim Vandenberg, 806 Cappington Lane.
And Kim knows this, but please understand that we are not allowed to comment or respond to public comment. So that is also for the board here.
Can you guys hear me?
Tap it. Yep.
Can you hear me? It's not very
Our
loud.
usual one died, so you just have to lean into it a little more. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I can talk really loud anyway. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Good evening, Kim Vandenberg, 806 Cappington Lane. I'm making two distinct comments tonight. First, for the record, this repeats part of my March 2nd comment, so it's accurately reflected in the minutes. Quote, "Thank you to Councilman Ilaraza for confirming council support regarding the lawsuits referenced. I have done nothing wrong and appreciate the confirmation," end quote. I made this statement contemporaneously, and it was the truth, evidenced by no objection during or after the meeting. Yet my comment on the official record was changed at the request of Lauren Thomas, who is also a plaintiff in the lawsuit against me. She texted Tom Eck to change the minutes. He asked, quote, "What would you like to see reflected?" End quote. Let that sink in. A council member harmed a co-defendant to benefit a plaintiff by manipulating my words on the record. I assume you'll get this right this time. Second, planning board appointments. This isn't leadership. It's political favoritism, and everyone knows it. You're replacing experienced, qualified individuals with some people who have political ties and lesser qualifications, including campaign contributions, and you're expecting residents not to notice. We do. Kristen Conway, just appointed, contributed to the Marvin United campaign, lost a developer, picked up a marketer, but she was a donor. Taxpayers foot the bill for these political games. Training costs rise, staff time is wasted, institutional knowledge is lost. You're making the village pay more for less. It's irresponsible and appears corrupt. A FOIA request gave us evidence of the mindset. Mayor Joe Barba said, quote, "Or we call a special meeting, fire Lavelle, install Louis, get 7 spaces on PR&G, hire Lauren and whomever else. If people resign, so be it," end quote. That's a civil response from the mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Angel Martin said, quote, "Bottom line, we serve all residents, but the 30% are never going to be for us, so we need to cut Lavelle loose," end quote. Ironic, Angel, I was on the council that appointed you to planning board. You didn't agree with us, but we added you anyway and didn't cut you loose. In retrospect, we probably should have. This isn't governance. It manufactures consensus and kills diversity of thinking, a roadmap for consolidating control. You lied about Ken Marino's non-reappointment as a casual get-to-know-you meeting when it functioned as an interview for a volunteer position with no transparency, no criteria, no accountability. Characterizes diversity when it's the opposite, underhanded board packing. I'll leave you with this. Is council serving the village or its political circle of three? The answer is obvious, and people are paying attention. And Bob, you're an absolute disappointment. You need to be standing up for what's right, not what protects you from criticism. I'll highlight your failings at every opportunity until your integrity improves. I can't decide if the newly elected council members are liars, stupid, or both. But let's be clear, you're not healthy for the village. Keep up the good work. See you guys at the next meeting.
Next up is Lisa Rose, 1209 Larkridge Court. Okay, so that's all, Madam Chair.
All right, unfinished business? Okay, moving on, new business? So discussion of CZ 2026-1, the LEP property. This is, we are not voting, this is only a presentation.
That's correct. So as I get situated here, so the village has received a rezoning application to rezone the LET property, is commonly known. The rezoning application has been submitted by Jones Homes to develop the property for a residential subdivision. This is the first kind of, first step in the process. They held their neighborhood meeting back in February. So the applicant is going to kind of present, this is the first opportunity for you guys to look at it, ask questions, provide initial comments and feedback, and then come towards at the May meeting, we'll have a staff report done, and that's where you guys can get in further discussion, potentially make a recommendation then. If not, you guys do have until the June meeting to make that recommendation. So with that being said, Bridget, I'll turn it over to you. I've got the presentation pulled up, or getting there. Yeah, let's see if this works.
You'll need to make it full screen first.
That's what I'm doing. Crap. Was that upset?
Test it. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
There, green. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Bridget Grant, land use consultant with Moran Van Allen. It's a pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of Jones Homes. I'm here with Rob Kreischer as well as our civil engineer Skylar, and they can help me answer probably any of the technical questions. I think many of you are probably aware this is a 24-acre site. It's located on the south side of Newtown Road at 105 Meadowlark Lane, south of Marvin Road. You can see where we are in context, sort of filling in the hole. The site is zoned RR, which is rural residential, and our proposed zoning is the Heritage District residential only to develop 26 single-family detached homes. You can see it's similar form to some of the other residential developments that have happened around us. The Marvin Comprehensive Land Use Plan, which the land use plan is the basis for making decisions for a change in zoning. The Heritage District is the intent, and the purpose is to maximize pedestrian connectivity and preservation of open space in this area, to protect adjacent existing neighborhoods by requiring a transitional density of residential areas and large opaque buffers between commercial areas and existing neighborhoods. I'll point out that one of the things that happens with the land use plan is that it's identifying a range of uses, but it isn't necessarily that all uses have to be developed on all sites. Rather, you look at the district as a whole and how it all fits together. So this is our proposed site plan. As I mentioned, it's just over 24 acres with the 26 single-family homes. We have our primary access off of Meadowlark Lane only. You can see that we have a 60-foot landscape buffer on the street frontage, and then a 100-foot buffer transitions between our proposed development and the adjacent neighborhood to the south. And then we have a 70-foot landscape buffer, and I was just to the east or page right. We're trying to maintain the existing pond in this area, and so we've set up the development to really focus on that being an amenity that adds value to the community and respects the existing, that's what's already out there. And so we're basically working around the pond to set up the network of streets and then have that one access point off of Meadowlark. We always say conditional zoning is an iterative process. The idea is that we start with what we think is going to work. We work with staff, the community, we go through the planning board and through town council to basically keep the plan evolving and incorporating feedback along the way. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side is our original proposed plan. After our community meeting, you'll see the changes. So we went from 29 units down to 26 units. We increased the overall lot width from 70 feet to 80 feet. We had our site setback as 5 feet, which provided a 10-foot separation between proposed homes. We increased that to 7.5 feet to provide a 15-foot separation between homes. Ultimately, our open space was at 50% and it increased up to 54.9% by having 13.27 acres of open space. Our minimum lot size increased from 10,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet, and our Meadowlark buffer, the buffer along the public street, went from 40 feet to 60 feet. And again, all of this just reflects an ability to take comments received during the process and incorporate into the plan and make changes. Traffic and access came up as one of the points. Access is limited to Meadowlark. We'll work with the HOA to maintain that access off Meadowlark, and if we aren't able to do that with that neighborhood, we would have to shift our access to Newtown Road. The development standards require right-of-way dedication prior to the first CO. That means those transportation improvements get worked out. And we don't, internal roads will be designed per Marvin Village standards, including sidewalks and planting strips. And the preliminary traffic counts didn't warrant a TIA because they were below the ordinance thresholds. In terms of residential density and lot size, we reduced, as I mentioned, from 29 down to 26. We know that the lot dimensions must comply with the heritage standards. And the homes are clustered so that we can preserve that open space in the pond, increase the separation from adjacent neighborhoods, and retain the natural environment and environmental features. What that essentially does is put all of the open space into common open space. It gives you the ability to protect it in a more meaningful way by way of the HOA rather than putting it into individual lots. When it comes to buffers and landscaping, we increased them to 70 and 100 feet along the existing residential subdivisions, 60 feet along Meadowlark. We have no more than 50% disturbance permitted within the required buffers to protect the tree canopy that's there. The buffers must achieve 95% opaque visual screen, so they'll be supplemented as needed as we're developing the site. And we're going to provide a tree removal, preservation, and mitigation plan. In terms of environmental protection and stormwater, again, the pond is being retained on the site to activate the open space, and we're going to use native vegetation conserved where possible. And Marvin stormwater standards is one of the strictest in the state and will be required to adhere to that. The homes will reflect the Heritage District architectural standards, including front porches, historic detailing, high-quality materials, such as brick, stone, and cementitious siding. Essentially, when we put these conditions into a conditional zoning, they're binding conditions. We have to adhere to them. When a rezoning gets approved and adopted, regardless of who the developer is, everyone who is privy to the property must maintain and stick to those provisions. So it's conditional zoning, it binds and runs with the land. Significant changes require us going back through the process. I've also included a few precedent images to give you an idea of the quality of homes intended to be constructed on the site. I think it gives you an idea of the varied roof lines, change in materials, and overall nature of what you can expect to see. I generally like to close any of my presentations on rezonings with the why support. We're going through a process that requires community engagement, feedback from staff. We're asking for something that's not permitted under the existing zoning, so in exchange, we try to give a little more certainty for what you can expect to see on the site. So we are directly implementing the 2050 Marvin Comprehensive Plan. We are trying to increase the lot widths and side yard setbacks for neighborhood compatibility. We are enhancing our buffers surrounding the site. We're prioritizing environmental stewardship with the preservation of the pond and keeping 50% of the site preserved as open space. We are elevating the architectural requirements for the site, and we're providing that certainty through conditional zoning. So essentially, this plan delivers more open space and larger buffers than what the current zoning requires. And with that, I'll go back to the site plan. Oh, maybe. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I've got, basically just two comments. Excuse me. First is, between this proposed development and the Heritage, I think that pretty well uses up all of the residential that was anticipated in the Heritage District, leaving no more potential residential within the entire district, which is a concern. And secondly, for years, I mowed the pasture and the paths and everything for Scott. And so I know, I'm not going to say intimately, but I know it quite well. And there are an awful lot of really big trees on that site. I'm not sure how they would work in with this plan.
There is a, so which document? There is a let property tree exhibit in your packet in eScribe. Do you have, you don't have eScribe with you. Could you pull that up for him, please?
So why I do this,
Hard
just
to see. I was looking at it last night. It was hard.
the applicant already did do a tree survey for the site. Give me 1 second, I'll get it pulled up, and identified any, let's see, large canopy trees, and based off their site, let me get this pulled up, 1 second, I'm getting there. See, I think it was only like 4 of significance that were within the existing site plan, or in the proposed plan. It's up here in the margins. Give me 1 second. This is not working how I wanted it to.
So can one of you walk us through this plan?
Where is the Zoom?
Hi, my name is Skylar Brown, and I represent CEC for Jones. With this, so in the red, you'll see those are all the trees that are kind of being demoed. We've ran just preliminary grading on the site to see how things will work out, trying to avoid any unnecessary removal of trees that we can. I believe Hunter's right, there's about 4 trees that we are removing within that, or three trees of very significant value, but 4 trees that we're also saving of very significant value. Unfortunately, some of those trees that we're removing are kind of right where the roadway would be, anywhere you would be developing homes on the project, because they're more centrally located within the site.
I have a question related to the arborist sort of question here. Like, most of the time when you remove trees that are basically overlapping, which is, it looks a lot of these reds, you end up killing the trees nearby, which I've seen happen in multiple developments, including the one just down the road from you and development that you guys did down on the Gates of Marvin. So if you were to look at where these red dots are, you're looking at impact upon the green that are supposed to be saved. What sort of promises or covenants do we have that those will be maintained if they're not down, if the roots get killed by removing the ones that are right next door to them?
Although we can't guarantee the trees won't be removed, what I've done, I was the one that developed this exhibit. We take that kind of caliper size of the tree of what was measured on site and do an offset of that basically in inches to feet to kind of determine those grading extents to see if that would disrupt the trees. You can see ranges where if you're disrupting only maybe 25% of the root zone, typically the trees will end up surviving, and especially when they're at these sizes. They're just a lot stronger and resilient. So what I've done is basically tried to do that offset for these varieties of trees. A lot of trees are kind of in the 10 to 20 range. Some hit up to 30. These significant ones are in the 40s that we are saving or removing for the project. You can see up there on the screen that we've got some 30s that are significant in the 40s. But that's basically what I was doing, was trying to offset it so we can determine those extents.
Hunter, can you expand that upper right-hand corner so people can actually physically read that?
Yeah. And this is helpful because it actually shows a good percentage of the site over here. So within the site, with Marvin's requirements, there were 1,098 trees that met the requirements for measuring it and documenting it. We're saving 57% of those trees and removing 43% from the site. Within those 43%, 332 are hardwood, which typically is more significant in value. And then 33% of those removed trees are softwood trees, which are your pines, your cedars, items like that, which aren't typically considered as significant.
Sorry, go ahead.
For the saved trees, if something happens, they get damaged or something, is there a plan for replacement?
So to kind of clarify, so if the rezoning gets approved, obviously they would then, part of the construction documents, they would have their tree removed, like basically take this, obviously they're showing how many trees are being removed, they would have a mitigation and landscaping plan. What our ordinance basically says, for those trees that are being identified to be preserved, if they are damaged during the construction, they have to replace it. I think it might even be a 2-for-1. If they don't replace it, there's a hefty fine there. As well as they are proposing as one of the conditions to do a detailed landscape plan in coordination with, I believe, Meadowlark, their landscape committee along that corridor, was one of the conditions that they proposed as part of their application. And so with all that being said, this is, like I said, preliminary, trying to show you the impacts and all that stuff. If the rezoning is approved, we'll have that information on that detailed. One of the early recommendations that we did discuss is potentially going ahead and maybe getting a species list of what to be planted back. And that's just, like I said, from an initial staff level and initial conversations to go ahead and get that incorporated in as part of the condition. So it kind of further clarifies what it will look like and what species will be in there.
Related, so when it comes to conditions, if, you know, the trees don't die generally the moment you take down the tree next to them or you damage the root system, like, is there a way to put a condition if a tree were to die within the first 12 months post-construction or something like that? Because like, we won't know.
Yeah, so so it gets a little tricky when the property gets sold in private property. Most of the time, when they install the landscaping stuff, there's warranties on the trees that are typically a year for that reason. Our ordinance also specifies tree protection fencing, and it has to be, and all that, that's where their construction and engineering plans would identify this, is it basically would show those trees where the tree protection fencing is. Myself, our engineer, even Keith O'Hara, the urban forester, reviews that. So basically we're trying to ensure that if those trees are being protected, it's complying with our ordinance to make sure it's protected. Obviously, you still run into instances that something happens, and that's where if it's in common open space or in those buffers, they would have to replace those before the development's closed out. When it gets to private property, that's something where it's between probably the developer / the HOA at that point to make sure that warranty's being met if it dies.
So we could pass that on to an HOA theoretically, or no?
How do you?
That responsibility?
He's asking, so when you guys plant, like at the Heritage, the trees, after the lot closes, do you guys have any type of agreement with the property owner to, if the tree dies, that you'll replace it during the warranty period?
I'm Rob Kreischer with Jones Homes. What, the question, starting on the bigger scale, when we do a development, we have a 1-year warranty with whoever does, or like Metroline is doing
So an
the
internal
trees. So
warranty
they,
with your
because
subcontract.
I can control the water on those, you know, but the like for an individual, when we sell a home there, our warranty is like a month because I don't know if they're going to water the plants and that type, or
But
trees.
could you
that type.
transfer something to an HOA? This is the HOA property, I assume. So, because my concern is this, right? Like, the larger trees tend not to show sign of death until months 9+ at least. So my concern is that, like, you guys' warranty expires, and then all of a sudden, and this happened just down the road from you. There was that huge heritage tree right by the entrance of, what's the name of the development?
Broadmoor.
Broadmoor, yeah. So, and it's down now, and it had been there when it was a farm. It was obviously at least 100 years old, I don't know, but like, so how do we ensure that the damage to the root systems that won't show until after you guys are gone isn't somehow warranted? And I know that there's gonna be an HOA handover agreement between you and your HOA, because you're gonna be the first in charge of the HOA, followed by the HOA. So how can we spread the risk? I don't think the one person whose property it is should be the one suffering, but like, the entire development should have to like somehow make sure that those trees don't go anywhere, right?
So what I have explained in my meetings is that, well, at some point I can't take, you know, at some point, and whatever that point is, you know, I've said this is a blank piece of paper, to look at it that way. So instead of me telling you folks and me telling council what I want. I said, tell me what you need, what you want in this project, what you want it to look like. That's why I believe we have 57% open space, 54%?
55, 57, yeah.
Something like that. So I don't know the answer if it gets to 18 months. But there's a stopgap in there for a year, like,
Obviously, it's a fact. I'm just concerned, can we do a mechanism for that as a part of this?
So
We
we
can
can.
figure out the dates, but.
So from a development standpoint, so if, like, I'm gonna focus on like any of those that are in the common open space or buffer, because once it gets on that private property, it gets wonky. But if any of those trees, like I said, are damaged from the initial land development, it typically takes them anywhere from, 18 to 24 months to start land development to get to where they even come to the village to begin the closeout process. With the landscape plantings that are that they would be planting within the common open space, we once they're installed, we inspect them. Typically, and they did this for the heritage, we asked for them to be planted during the planting season from October to April. Individual property, once again, is harder because it's a close and sell date type thing. But we look at when those are planted, we walk the property. We did this in Marvin Gardens and such, and with plantings that we found dead, we're doing it in Broadmoor currently as well. That's in those common open spaces that were part of their approved planting plan. They have to mitigate that before or replace that before we release the bond and take over the roads. So there is kind of a mechanism at that initial, but then once again, if those replacement trees die, I mean, that's where it's kind of been on the HOA to kind of maintain and replace.
Which is where, I guess mechanically, it gets more of a legal question, right? The timeline is an arborist question, right? But the mechanical question is, could we make sure that these trees that are supposed to be saved, that the bylaws of the HOA as transferred from the builder, because the builder would be in charge of the HOA at first, require protection of these circled trees to, one, protect the property owner, because it's not their fault, and two, set a timeline where these things could go. I mean, because it takes time for these larger trees to die. That way, there's like some sort of tail on it, because the problem that happens is that a year later, after the development's done, and after the bond's released, you end up with a tree dying that was significant in its screening, and then you're out of luck, right?
It would need to be in the development agreement to be
That's what I'm
passed on to
saying.
the.
Yeah, we have a
Mechanically,
development.
we can put
And
it
this
into
is
the situation. Yeah.
this zoning area is, there's not a legal issue here.
Yeah, it's fully
We can ask
conditional,
whatever,
exactly.
yeah.
So I'm just wondering, if we
yeah.
can conditionally do something where like, hey, you have to do this, and also you have to pass this responsibility on to the HOA, just like, some HOAs have to take care of X, Y, or Z, they have to take care of a couple trees too.
We typically, in our development agreement, we also do a maintenance agreement for our subdivisions, which is a maintenance agreement obligation between the village and the developer, but it is somewhat then passed on to the HOA. And that stuff, we can definitely work with the applicant to get that as a condition. But I do want to just, like I said, ensure like during that development phase, like we're out there inspecting and all that's being checked. And so a lot of that typically gets identified during that process for sure.
so the trees going down Meadowlark right now, the canopy that's there, for instance, Scott Letts Senior's daughter, oddly enough, did a dissertation on those trees. And she
So they're
said
famous, is what you're saying. So now we have to protect them even harder. Famous trees. I mean, that's,
So anyway, they have a lot
big
of vines.
responsibility. Are you
A lot
ready
of
to take that
vines
on?
on them. And so the dissertation comes back that in time, these are going to die. So one of the things I said to the HOA, or offered to the HOA from Meadowlark, is to have their landscape people involved on Meadowlark to provide, we'd clear out, and they'd help us design the understory that would eventually take place there. So
That's a great thing to document, I think, that's awesome. Yeah.
So that was actually one of my questions, because I know the last time we spoke at the meeting with the farms at Meadowlark, or that, I don't know if it's hyacinth vines, I can't remember what kind of vine is strangling those trees around, or that, and there was a comment about having to remove those trees because they will die sooner rather than later because of the invasive vine. They're beautiful, they smell great, but they're killing the trees. So is there an update on that? It looks like a lot of them are still here on this tree preservation, or the tree count. Just, sorry, really quickly, what are the different, there's not a key here. So what is the difference between a solid pom-pom and a outline tree. I don't know how else to explain it. Is that a difference between a hardwood and a pine? Like,
Yes.
okay, so
Yeah.
which one is which?
So it's a difference between a softwood and a hardwood. Softwoods are, I guess you could say the pom-pom, and the hardwoods are a cotton ball, maybe?
Okay,
Is a good
that's
way to
helpful.
describe it.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And I was going to add back to Chris's comment. Hunter, I think we would be still contingent to your tree conservation area requirements
Yeah.
as well, which does have its own regulations within that. And that's a designated area within your guys' zoning requirements. That is tree conservation, and that would require replacement if those trees did pass.
Okay.
I have a question. You mentioned specifically that you had looked at grading patterns already. Does that mean that you've also already looked at water flow patterns as well? And if so, is that going to be something you present on? I did not see that in the packet.
We typically don't provide, during our rezonings, like stormwater full analysis. We have, sorry, Hunter, can you pull that back up?
Yeah, that usually comes
The
in
tree exhibit has
construction
grading on it, so I
documents,
can
so
speak
it
to
needs to be rezoned first. And then they actually, if they are granted rezoning, then they will spend the money to have those subsequent tests and processes done.
From NCDOT, though, you can get a copy of the water flow patterns. They typically have those for different areas based on roads. The reason I asked specifically is in addition to us having a shale layer underneath the clay, which kind of filters like a pot. Therefore, it creates a lot of flooding. And so a lot of our developments deal with that. Love the open space and the pond retention, thank you. But you have the cemetery across from Banks Church off of Newtown. And you guys, because of the graves, we have to be very concerned about erosion.
Yep.
There is not a fence, so delineation is of a concern. And, I noticed the buffer is only 40 feet when the North Carolina State Historical Office of Preservation recommends a 100-foot buffer. So can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I'll tackle the grading first and the stormwater. So is there a laser on the pointer?
Yeah, there
Maybe.
is, but
So you can kind of see a ridge line here, which encompasses that, the graveyard as well. So all of this stormwater is currently flowing this way. It's going to come over that way. So it'll be captured on our site. We'll move it with swales into the storm system, which then down here towards the south, we've currently got 2 ponds down here that's where all the stormwater will be going. We'll be following NCDEQ's requirements. We're very aware of the issues you're talking about with infiltration, since we've been going through that with Heritage across the street. So we're well versed in that. Hopefully it's an easy process this time with NCDEQ, doing all that coordination. As for the buffer, I think that's more something that Rob should probably speak to.
Well, and I mean, I'll add, so based on some of the feedback that was received during the neighborhood meeting, regarding the gravesite and doing, potential unverified gravesites, they did do a archaeological due diligence with the GPR study of a 100-foot buffer off the property line. In that report, I don't think it's in the packet, but I do have a copy of it. There was no findings, so that was done. With that being said, like with what the SHPO recommendation is, like that's something that can be discussed into increasing that buffer. Once again, this is conditional zoning, so it can always be pitched out there. But they do have, is it 40 feet right there? Yeah. So it's 40 feet from the property line to the back of then where the residential property and disturbance would be. But that is definitely something that, once again, conditional zoning, these conditions have to be mutually agreed upon. That 40-foot buffer, I think because of the zoning of the other, I think that is the minimum, and maybe 20. I would have to go look at the MDO. But once again, that can always be a recommendation and something discussed for the applicant to potentially revise as part of this process.
Given the fact that there are Civil War graves, I just think it would be nice that we preserve and ensure preservation. I do like that you're grading away from it and pushing the water in the opposite direction away from the gravesite, which is great. Another question I had, which came from the Heritage Neighborhoods community meeting, was they were very concerned about the acreage I love the open space being at 54%, but you still have the homes at roughly .275 acres. And that was something that they were very concerned about, being in their development, as they felt that they were half an acre in all the literature that they reviewed regarding the development, and were very concerned about that. What is the logic on keeping it so low, given that Marvin has that 1 acre development rule?
Sorry,
I know Heritage District MDO is different.
It's because it's in the heritage, the overlay district. One of the things that, and the ability to preserve open space is to do this in a more unified way. Sometimes when we have larger lots and we put everything into someone's backyard, it makes it easier for them to tear down trees or sort of increase the size of lawn, add pool, add features, add amenities. So one of the things that they're doing here is maintaining the smaller lot size in keeping with the UDO to cluster the homes together and increase the amount of open space. It's generally considered a better practice for tree preservation and tree canopy when you're working around those and working with the topography.
So I live in the Preserve at Marvin, and we actually have a amount of square footage that can be impervious in order to preserve those trees, but still have the larger lot sizes. So it's something to think about or consider, especially given John's comment regarding that these number of homes would take up all of the homes allowed in the Heritage District.
I think another part of it was to keep the existing pond. I think that was one of the things that was at a higher value rather than filling in the pond to create more developable area or get larger lots. It was the trade-off to keep the pond so that we could have the smaller lots.
But realistically, though, with the pond, like, what would you do for drainage if you didn't have the pond? Because it's kind of the central point of where the water goes to.
They would be able to solve it with the other BMPs that are on the site.
Yeah.
Skylar can speak. Sorry, we're doing the trade-off of areas of expertise. So as the engineer, I'm like, come back up. But essentially, you would be able to.
Yeah, there's clearly retention, but also
Yes.
it's more of a natural retention is what you're saying.
Yeah. Like you said, it's more of a natural retention. So we're really required to capture as much impervious as we can. And those actually have to go to the SCMs, the 2 ponds below. What happens naturally with the existing pond is what it'll capture kind of in that area next to that home here with the trails, kind of in these open spaces, and then where the grade breaks in here going back towards it. That's more where it'll get more natural drainage besides just rainfall. But everything that is more built upon area will be required to be going to those 2 ponds down below.
Would you have to increase those ponds if you were to fill in the pond?
Yes, yeah. If we increase the amount of impervious area within the site, those will be increasing as well.
It's kind of a 1-to-1 almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really a give, then, is it?
It is a benefit, for sure.
I mean, like a give to the community. Like, if you have to have that much water retention regardless, you're just keeping in one natural way of doing it.
Yes, but I would also say one is more aesthetically pleasing than your typical
Sure, yeah,
SCM.
but like, it's not about like, you could develop all of that land in the middle if you wanted to. You would need that much water retention, generally speaking, based on the swales and or is, like, that's what, it's a question. Like,
So, yeah, so,
would you
sorry,
need that
no.
much space generally? How much more acreage could you
You don't need
get?
the same pond to be recreated.
Correct. We would not need that same pond to be recreated, no. Sorry, I misinterpreted
Yeah,
what you were
sorry,
saying. Yeah.
because like right now it's X size. What % of that X could you theoretically do if you did it artificially?
If we fully built out the site, I mean, I would expect those ponds down below to maybe double in size. They would, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. It really depends on
You
the
could
storm
cut the
events.
other one in half about, based upon doubling those, and then
It'd be about half, is what it looks like.
you'd have less trees, but you'd have
You would have, yeah,
about
correct.
half that lake to
Yes.
develop on.
Mhm.
Okay.
Hunter, the by right build here is 24 homes.
So the property is currently zoned rural residential, so, which is a minimum of 2.5 acre, per the flexible development standards, you could say 2 1/4, so let's just say it would be 10 lots.
Yeah, sorry, if you,
hypothetically.
if they were to rezone into our,
If they were to go rezone
they
to
were to go
SFR
one
1,
step up, right? So like
to SFR 1.
to 1 acre per.
Yeah, essentially it would be, SFR 1 is essentially, yes, the 1 acre type development. I will mention that they have looked at all of these designs. I have seen them, and, you know, there's pros and cons to both of them. And one of the biggest thing, and especially after initial conversation with the council and some of the feedback received from the neighborhood meeting, was that, you know, and we know this, is that people in Marvin really cherish and value trees and tree protection. One of the things that I noted, like with their SFR1 or their rural residential plan, and you see this, I mean, right down here at, Chris, your neighborhood, those two properties there on Stacy Howie, that they protected trees during, the Jones Homes, who did develop those 6 lots, protected the trees during the development. Private property came in, or property owners then decided they wanted to cut all the trees. At that point, because it's on private property, we can't really say no. So that's kind of one of these trade-offs of like what we have to consider, you guys as the board have to kind of weigh, is looking at the tree protection being protected as part of conservation / common open space versus on then private, because they can show all the trees being protected as part of a SFR1 subdivision, but once it's on private property, there's not much that we can do. And so, you know, that's one thing. The other thing that, and Keith O'Haron, the Union County Urban Forester, will say this, is that protecting land is the biggest thing that he would like to see, meaning like the less land that's disturbed is more valuable than potentially trying to preserve a tree here and there, because you're not scraping the topsoil, you're not messing with any of that. So the longevity of that natural area will remain in its natural state and thrive. And so that's, once again, kind of another initial comment that was given to the applicant. So that's what we have to consider when we're kind of looking at this.
Would you just clarify, is the by right usage would be theoretically, if one could develop all of that water as well, 9.6 lots. at
So it'd be
2.5
9
acres,
lots, yeah.
Which would mean 9 lots.
Is that 2.5?
2.5 acres at 24
So
acres
there
is
is
9.6 lots.
There is flexible development standards that said they can reduce it down to 2.25, but it would still be probably still at 9.
So they say not, because there's also drainage
Yeah.
requirements and stuff like that. and it's
At that point,
Not
probably
a
not.
rural lot.
divided individually then,
Not a
yeah.
rural
So,
lot.
all right,
Because
so-
on a rural lot, because there would probably be under the impervious and
So
area.
9 or 10-ish
Yeah.
lots then, at 2.5 to 2.25 acres
Correct.
to be reasonable for you to.
So that would be that is what they can do currently. They could submit a subdivision plat for that, and it all be reviewed administratively.
Have you run the tree removal numbers for current rural by right and our residential one?
No, we have not.
I'd just like to.
What is the residential one related to this?
So it's just another level of a zoning option that they could go into that
They could
reduces-
request it, right?
That they could request,
Yeah, but it
right?
wouldn't be something they have a right for. Okay, that was the question, okay.
I would just like to see the comparison of tree preservation. We've been talking a lot about tree preservation in terms of our current planning. So if you have them, that'd be great to see. I know it's not required of you, but like, it is, I believe in conservation, conservation neighborhoods for preservation. So I just think it would be an interesting side-by-side table to show the difference between what rural versus RF1.
Like I said, that's stuff that, I think before they even submitted, there was about 10 different site plans I saw with this thing. Before they submitted, there was like 10 different site plans I saw that they were, looking at their options. I think there was one that even had 36 lots at some point, and I told Rob there's no shot that's going to work. And so, it's one of those things that this is kind of based off of, once again, kind of where we're at, what the plan says, kind of initial feedback from staff in that community meeting, but it is an evolving plan. And, that's kind of this is the first step in this. They're going to take that back, and then hopefully at the next meeting, we'll kind of look at the differences and discuss that further.
And I know
as
that,
part of your
this is the
recommendation.
plan that's on, that you're asking to rezone. I'm asking from an educational standpoint on planning, because people don't understand planning if you have not been doing this for a while. So any information that you'd be willing to share with us so that we could explain why things work, why things don't work, I would appreciate it.
So on other projects, I've done something similar to what I've got up on the screen right now, and it can just show you, we can do the comparison, the lot width, and yes, the lot width is going to be bigger and the lot size is going to be bigger, but we can demonstrate the loss of common open space or decreased buffer sizes or the comparison of trees. And I think that's probably a good way to look at it, is just a table.
Thanks,
That's,
I appreciate it.
and Bridget, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's the other thing with, once again, with conditional zoning, you know, they're proposing that 100-foot landscape buffer there at the, adjacent to Meadowlark, which is what the Heritage District requires. SFR 1, it's a 10-foot minimum buffer. Now, once again, we would probably ask if they to still do conditional zoning, and that would be still something that we could negotiate. But with the Heritage District, you have that 100-foot as a minimum for that adjacent to be into rural residential. And so they're providing that. There was something else that I was going to say. I just lost my train of thought.
I did see somewhere in here that you have, although I can't find it in the documents. And I guess back to your point, Rob, that you are looking when trees are removed or when, before the landscaping plan is submitted, if you are approved rezoning, is to working with, I guess, the farms at Meadowlark to establish those undergrowth trees to reach that 95% opacity. I can never say that word, opacity.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal during the community meeting. We talked about.
The woman, she said
I was like, come
this. She said,
Come along. We talked about this a lot during the community meeting. Sometimes when large mature trees grow up and you clear out some of the invasive and the underbrush, you end up creating a clear view into the community. And so we talked about, as we do some of the cleanup, where we do remove some of the invasives, take away some of the underbrush, which gives you a really nice screen to refill it and supplement the planting so that you create that at the same opacity.
yeah.
We'll also get rid of the station wagon that's out there.
But please
as
keep the
well
washing machine.
as-
I'd like
yeah,
to
and
keep the washing machine.
all of that will go.
Lisa, washing machine? No. It's just a
So-
death hazard for children. It's not a
Yeah,
mistake.
and the goats will go as well. But the three things that we wanted to make sure, we met with Meadowlark as a community first, and I think we had 6 or 8 families at that meeting. It doesn't make sense for me to tell them again what it looks good going down Meadowlark. What I needed to do was think long-term when, if those trees, and they're going to die at some point, what that will look like, that understory, and that's why we wanted them involved in it, because they would drive down that road every day. It's something that we have offered to them to be, we would make it part of our conditional zoning package. The other thing that I had heard before these meetings is some people wanted to keep the home that's there and some didn't. I don't care. Whatever the majority people want, I'm good with. The only thing that I have been very adamant about is that the minute I closed on the property, if the town wanted to keep it, I would, within 10 seconds, deed it to the town, because the liability of it, just kids knowing there's an empty house there for a while and what could happen. The other thing I've offered is if there was some discussion about moving it. I said that I would pay to have it moved, let me back up. I would pay the town to have it moved. I was not going to move it, so if the town said, and it would be in a set amount. So if they said it was $20,000 to move it across the street or wherever, I would write the village at $20,000. You guys would be responsible for moving it, and I would wash my hands of what that would look like by the time it got
Because
to its intended site.
As I've heard, you don't think it might make it across the road.
I do not.
Yeah.
I have been in the home with Scott Lett Jr., and it's just my opinion, I don't think it would move very well. But again, it's one of those things that I don't care either way. And then again, the other thing is that we wanted to preserve the pond. We had DEQ come out so that we could understand whether it was a jurisdictional pond or not, whether it could be drained. If you guys and the town and the council wanted us to do something with larger lots, that is a non-jurisdictional pond. which means it can be drained without any jurisdiction from the state. We don't want to do that, and we have no intentions of doing that, but it's just, that's an information for you folks.
I have a question. So,
You don't have to ask me, man, you just go.
no, I mean, like, you're kind of the boss,
Or
right?
if you're asking me.
I'm asking you to be able to talk. I don't want to talk over anyone. So, you know, in my mind, like, there, you have the two zones you're kind of in, right? You have your rural residential at 2.5 acres, right? And then you have this overlay area of operations of the Heritage District, right? With intent behind it. It was created by other folks who had a goal of creating a walkable downtown area in Marvin, right? The last development Jones Homes did was in an area intended for residential, right? It was just residential. And it was rural residential, and you got subdivided down, and now you have a bunch of homes, and you see a bunch of roofs when you drive by, because it's deep down in the ground. But this one was mixed use, and in my mind, when someone says, I want a walkable downtown, mixed use means like putting some businesses to the front end, so you could walk in it and use it as a downtown, because of the walkable downtown aspect of the conversation. On the other hand, your current zone is rural residential at 2.5 acres per property. Now, assuming some flexibility on the acreage based upon zone, like rights of usage and things like that, and you just dumped concrete into that pond, you got about 9.6 properties in that end, which would be, and if you sold them at $2.5 million each, that's $24 million, right? And comps would indicate somewhere between $2 and $2.7 million for something that you would build in those sort of properties. So the question is, my concern is that you're kind of splitting the baby here. You've got this thing that is currently zoned for 2.5 acres per property that you could sell for a total of, you know, $20 to $30 million of sales at 9.6 houses per in that area, which I'm sure is more than what you're paying for. I hope so. Or the intent of the zone, which was have a walkable area on the street in Newtown and Marvin Road and everything by the roundabout. So how are we fulfilling either of the two things? How are we fulfilling either the intent of the Heritage District or the intent of the rural residential zone? Because it's almost like you're fulfilling neither simultaneously when I look at the development proposal, despite the proposal to save this pond, which is lovely.
Part of me wants to defer to Hunter a little bit about, from the planning perspective, when we look at it, we are proposing a zoning district and looking at a land use that's deemed appropriate with the land use plan. And it's one of the things I mentioned before, not all parcels can meet the needs of everything that's included in the district. If you look at the full size of this parcel, would they want commercial down Meadowlark Lane? Is that necessarily? So I think it's a little bit of, what else would
But
you?
the whole parcel is a parcel, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you would think maybe like the front part would be mixed use, or would be commercial, and the back part, like mixed use would be defined as the whole parcel is mixed use, not you put commercial down at the end of Meadowlark Lane. That's kind of a non sequitur.
We also have a little bit of an issue when it comes to access off of Newtown Road and commercial uses in that area. And so there's also a matter of what's the best use based on the traffic patterns that are there. Residential seems to make the most sense in this location, but
And yeah, to add that, like with it being identified as mixed use, it was originally intended as part of the plan to have, yes, a commercial component and a residential component. With this being now fully residential, I do think, you know, it's a least intense use, and there's other factors there that I think, you know, if it's the traffic, the concerns of adjoining property owners, commercial doesn't, in my opinion, make sense there at the frontage. I don't think it really makes sense at this corner, especially with having your core here centered around Village Hall. But that's, I mean, once again, they have a right to propose. I mean, that's part of these discussions, and ultimately can be a part of how you guys make your recommendation and how council votes.
So I guess the question, though, is like, the only thing we have in the books here is two things. We have a downtown development district, essentially, that was proposed to enable downtown development, which this does not fulfill. And we have a 2.5 acre lot requirement, which this does not fulfill. So essentially, you're asking for a rezone that doesn't fit either the intent of the Heritage District nor the intent of the original zoning, which is 2.5 acres. And I'd also ask as a follow-up, but what is the contracted price for the property? Because if you could sell properties for $2 to $3 million per piece at 2.5 acres, I wonder if you couldn't make a profit on the thing at that subdivision rate.
I can say that I've been doing this for more than 10 years, and I have never in my role been privy to the property price or sales price because it's a private agreement, not part of the land use decision, so I can't speak to that. What I can say is that just because it doesn't fulfill everything doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't consistent. The land use plan supports the use of the zoning designation on this site. Again, that's more of a staff report comment that Hunter can make, but we're not trying to deviate in a way that we have chosen a zoning district that isn't supported by the adopted land use plan.
So what would be the difference between this and a warehouse? Because it was mixed use, right? So commercial and non-commercial, like commercial and residential is mixed use, right? So like what if you just put a shopping mall in there that's commercial, right?
It's a little more nuanced than that, I
Or
think.
like a walkable shopping district instead? Would that be in keeping with the intent of the
If the
proposal?
zoning district that was identified in the land use plan fits, then staff would say that it was warranted.
I'm asking you, not the staff.
But that's really where I have to go to. I go to staff and say, we're looking at a plan, we're looking at the adopted land use plan. It's our understanding that these zoning districts are appropriate to use for this recommended land use. We could come forward with a proposal, staff usually
But you
provides-
agree that it asked for mixed use in the original Heritage District proposal?
That's just an option.
I understand, but
Yeah, we're not-
it was marked as, I've read the proposal.
Yeah,
So,
to the adjoining landowners, we're not happy about that either.
no,
so,
and I doubt
yeah.
that they are. My point is not that we should have mixed use. My point is that the proposal matches neither the original intent of the people who wrote the document nor the current zone. So it matches nothing. I'm not saying we should all of a sudden throw some commercial on it. I wouldn't like that either. But it doesn't really match anything, is what I can see. Like, it doesn't match, it's zoned as rural residential, which you could do 9.6 lots approximately, which would make a good flip of a turn on money there, right? Or it could be the goal of having a walkable downtown for Marvin, which was what was adopted, which I would never, whether or not I would have adopted is irrelevant, but that's what the intent of the people who wrote the document was. So how does this fit either of them is the question.
I mean, to kind of answer, even though like like I said, identified as mixed use, when the plan was being formed, there were 2 studies that were done prior to me being on staff here, but that also identified the need for housing and certain elements to support the area. That's why you had that residential only component. That's why you then also had properties that were larger in size identified as mixed use, so it can allow for that kind of flexibility in having some of that residential being developed. So therefore, that's, in my opinion, at, once again, high level from a residential standpoint, it's meeting that intent of to support the overall district with having that residential component there. Like I said, I don't really think that this commercial is really needed at this corner, and so.
But Hunter, I mean, you don't think that, but I mean, this isn't the Federalist Papers informing the Constitution here. This is like what's written down in this thing. What's written down is this mixed use.
But that's a plan.
I think, so mixed use is a mix of uses. It does not mean that it must have multiple components.
Sure.
It can be a bunch of different things, right? It's a flexible zoning application.
I know
So-
what mixed use means.
Right, I
yeah.
understand, but I mean, like, so I just don't.
Then why would we
It
say,
could be zoned purely residential. It
or
could not-
purely commercial?
It cannot be zoned purely commercial because of
Why is that?
transitional density. You cannot have commercial butting up against rural residential. And that's in the land use plan. And will
It
in
can
the
be
next
zoned
use.
anything, really, except for the things that are prevented by the rules.
No,
of-
it can't be zoned anything. I mean, if it's zoned mixed use, the most dense that it could be
What-
would be mixed use. Like, I don't.
Can I
not
throw a
explaining
monkey
it well,
wrench in
but-
the middle of this thing? John, because I know you were on there years ago, and I keep forgetting the organization that helped us figure out the Heritage District. And they were saying that,
It was a chapel, it was a,
DP&I.
yeah, they were out of Chapel Hill.
yeah.
They were out of UNC
One of
Chapel Hill.
the thoughts that came up was, again, the reason for the Heritage at Marvin was they said you needed to support the Heritage District with residential housing. In fact, they were even talking about senior living. It was talking about somewhat dense housing. But the other thing they said was that there should be a park. And where you got the park right now doesn't make any sense. You ought to have the park come down into the Heritage District. And that would be a gathering place. Now, we did somewhat of a hybrid with what we're doing here beside the town hall. But if you recall in previous council meetings, I actually approached Scott Lett, asking him if he wanted to sell his property to the village. and
You're
us
not the only
make it-
one.
Huh?
Multiple people have approached to try and
And-
preserve it.
And he wouldn't give a number or anything like that, but the point of it was brought up in the meeting, and the thought was to preserve the house, make it a community house, maybe make it a library, maybe make it a museum. I'm just throwing this out here, okay? You know, what if we were to turn around and say, I'm not saying it would guarantee, I'm just throwing out an idea, that what if we were to say, why don't we let them build at Eford Park, and they buy Eford Park, and we then turn this into a park and keep it from a lot of, you know, what'll be more housing, which is going to raise the ire of the community. Why not do some sort of a swap? In other words, somehow attain the property, sell it to them. I'm just throwing this out. And let them build on Eford Park and move it over and make that a park. Just a thought. I told you it'd be a monkey wrench.
That's definitely beyond the planning board.
Yeah, we don't-
So, let me.
We can only react and respond and to what is presented to us. I remember that plan, and I remember that plan. There was some great, people got very upset about Eford Park, but I remember it, yeah, no.
When we looked at this piece of property, the feedback that I've gotten from the residents at Meadowlark is they would rather see it be residential than to have a retail component on that site. Our thinking is that with the existing 68 homes, and we add these 24 or 26, I forget who said it earlier, but it maxes out basically all the allowable residential homes in the entire
Sure.
Heritage District, and it keeps it all together.
I do want to make a point, though, because you did question the whole concept of mixed-use district. In the mixed-use thing, and I'm not arguing for commercial, so we're clear. I'm arguing that you shouldn't, that it should just stay rural residential. So we're clear, since the proposal has nothing to do with commercial. Mixed-use Heritage District, a sub-district intended to be the bulk of the central area of the district. These parcels include properties that are larger and deeper, or include smaller properties that adjoin larger properties, and thus are situated to have residential in the back and commercial in the front. Developments in this district should meet the intent of mixed use and should all have no more than 30% of the total area as residential uses. So, though you could do less than that, the intent as written in our law is a mixed use of commercial and residential. So it takes me to my point, which is not whether commercial's good or bad. It's not whether we want you to suddenly throw some storefronts in front. It's that the proposal as presented is asking for a use that is neither contemplated by the current rural residential zone nor the heritage zoning. And I get you've talked to staff, and I don't care if you talk to staff, I'm asking for you to explain it, which is how does putting 24 to 28 properties, whatever the heck you ended up with, that are subdivided and face away from the main road and become just a generic subdivision, which you guys build great product, that's awesome, it has nothing to do with it. I'm not questioning your building capabilities, I'm questioning the planning for the property. The intent of the zone as passed by others is that it have no more than 30% residential on a mixed-use zone property. It is not that. It is mostly residential, and it is also not 2.5 acres, which is the intent of the original zone. So we're splitting the difference between two intents here is what I'm seeing.
So I want to just clarify a few things. So one, the existing zoning is rural residential. This is an application to rezone the property.
Yes.
So it completely changed the zoning.
Sure.
What you're referring to is the intent and stuff is in the adopted plan. One of your duties and responsibilities as planning board when these rezonings come in front of you is to weigh and consider if it's consistent or not consistent with the adopted plan. When you guys make your recommendation, you adopt that a draft land use consistency statement. And so therefore, that's where that you can put that in there as part of the discussion,
But
but
I'm
it doesn't.
asking them to explain how they think it fits it. I understand how you're.
Well, I'm just saying, like, at this time, like, at the end of the day, like, even if it's determined inconsistent, it still can be approved. It's ultimately a council decision.
I can vote however I want.
No, no,
yeah.
I'm
I
not-
could vote
no, I'm
for-
not disagreeing with
I could
that.
vote for like a clown shoes to walk in and everything like that. That's fine. I'm asking them to say, thank you, Hunter, to explain how it fits either of those two visions, either rural residential or the Heritage District, if it does neither of the intents.
So the way I look at things with planning is that the one thing you're referencing is a vision plan. The vision plan is a snapshot in time for what you're trying to accomplish. When you're looking at those things, you're often looking at them at a very high level. When it comes time to actually build and construct a site, you have to start taking other things into consideration, and it's a fine-tuning of the vision. Sometimes you figure out that the vision wasn't actually perfect for the surrounding neighborhoods or the context or the transportation. Sometimes you, like commercial, they figured out by evaluating the site, it is not a great site for a commercial, even though that's what's in the policy. What they figured out was this is a better way for us to, the other part of that you mentioned was add rooftops. It was an opportunity to create preserved open space and a balance of rooftops.
Who's they?
The policy document that you wrote, that you mentioned, you said one of the points of the policy, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what you said,
I've just read the
was
district rules.
additional rooftops.
No, I just made a comment that I could see a lot of rooftops in your other division.
I thought there was something you said
The
about.
Word document I just read was, which is the district usage, is that the mixed-use district, which this property sits in, is intended to be not more than 30% residential and mostly, and otherwise commercial to the front of the property to encourage walkability. That's what the legal document that we're stating, and everyone's
hold on.
opinion is fine.
It's a policy,
Well,
sorry.
yeah, Chris, can you clarify, are you reading the district in Article 8 of the MDO, or are you reading that in the small area plan?
Small area plan.
Okay, so that's a plan, it's a guiding document.
It's
So
not
it's
An
not,
adopted plan.
But it's not.
correct, but it's not related to the zoning. They're proposing to be a part of the Heritage District residential only, so that's two separate things there. Even though the future land use map does identify that as mixed use, that's not,
But I get that they're proposing to be residential only, they're getting part of it. I know we're going to keep going down to, you don't understand what you're talking about here, but like, my core point is this, right? On the vision, which it's a vision, and it's not a binding legal thing, no matter what, we could just say no because we don't want to change it from a residential, right? As you told me earlier. So the vision as laid out by prior boards and by the town, prior village boards is that mixed use means X. It's in an adopted plan. The only two things that matter are the prior adopted plan and the current zone, because they're asking to change it off of the current zone to something else. If you're asking to change it to just residential, it fits no plan that has been adopted by anyone. It, no more so than switching it to light and, obviously forget the fact that you can't abut residential with light industrial, but it doesn't fit the mixed use, the plan of the Heritage District any more than light industrial would, or any more than townhouses would, or any more than an apartment building would. It doesn't mean it's allowed. It doesn't mean we can do it. I'm just saying that it doesn't fit a previously adopted vision of any prior boards, village or planning board otherwise, to do purely residential on this property. Nor does it fit the prior zoning, because the prior zoning said, and the current zoning, I should say, says 2.5 acres per property. So the point that I keep asking someone to explain to me is, if we, rather than questioning my understanding of the legal issues, is since we have two things on the record, one of which is a 2.5 acre by right development situation of rural residential, right? And the other of which is a vision that this would be mixed use with 30% residential, commercial to the front. And this is neither of those things. What makes this fit under a request under the Heritage District as opposed to just a generic conditional zoning request?
There are many times that people find that the land use or the zoning that's being proposed is not consistent with the adopted land use policy. The way planning boards are able to look at it is say, we find that
I
this
know what
is
I'm able to do. I'm asking how it fits the
So I'm
Heritage
telling-
District
Well, I'm
plan.
trying to explain, because you haven't liked any of my previous answers, I'm trying to explain that we believe it's consistent in providing a residential component. While it may not be consistent in planning board members' opinions of land use consistency, we would then ask you to take a look at the secondary aspects, which are the benefits of the context-sensitive planning. So the second layer is, a planning board will sometimes say, we find this to be inconsistent with the adopted land use policy. It's based on your opinion, not mine.
I know.
And then you get to go through and say, however, we find this to be in the best interest of the community because they have increased the amount of open space more than what's allowed by right, because they've increased the buffers, because they have agreed to certain architectural.
You're back to explaining the mechanics of it to me.
But that's
I
what
know
we're
that
doing it.
works. I'm asking you in your opinion. Rather than explain, I keep trying to get to this point here, and I get it, and maybe it's frustrating for you, it's frustrating for me too. I understand that we're going to put a list of things that we think fit and a list of things we don't fit. I understand we then vote for it, and I understand that the village can approve it or not. I understand we have the right to change our minds. I get all that. That's mechanics.
So that's what we're asking for.
But I'm asking you, does purely residential match the description of the Heritage District's consideration for that area?
My opinion is that it can be a portion of alignment. It doesn't have to be wholly alignment, and that's my opinion.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be aligned, is what you're saying.
I just said it's partially aligned.
How is it aligned? In what way?
Because it's providing residential uses. It's not providing a use that's
It's
completely
probably
unrelated.
100% residential usage.
You asked me for my opinion, and I'm
Okay.
giving you my opinion.
Thank you.
And just, once again, this is the first go at this. Obviously, we're going to go into further discussion at the next meeting, and once again, kind of start weighing the discussions further on consistency and not as we prepare for you guys to make a recommendation. Other than that, are there really any other questions or any other additional comments or feedback on the current plan?
I had a couple questions related to some conversations I've had with different community members through different neighborhoods. So one of the things that they were interested in was the ingress egress. If you cannot obtain an easement for Meadowlark, where is your plan to put that on Newtown? And then I have a secondary question once they answer that for you, Hunter.
So our access point on Newtown would be largely dictated by NCDOT in deciding where the exact location goes. So it'd probably push us as far away as possible from people coming off the roundabout to provide the safest access point.
Probably be roughly in that area, and most likely it'd be a right-in, right-out. But DOT, they have a right still to access it from a DOT road. So they could amend this plan to have that access there. From a planning aspect, and with Newtown having these certain traffic counts that it does, DOT is probably going to, once again, push to have it access off a secondary road compared to Newtown. I know that is still, up for discussion between developer and access with the HOA. But if they amended it, they would just have that access off of Newtown, and that would go through coordination with DOT on where. But most likely, it would be a little bit further down towards the cemetery, and then it'd be a right-in, right-out.
So Hunter, when we have had discussions about other rezonings last year, you talked about putting into the Marvin development ordinances that a TIA was required. They are claiming it is not. Was that done, and does that mean that it would be required, especially given Newtown is problematic?
Yes, so what the ordinance says for TIA is there's certain thresholds that require them, that would require TIA. Part of that's in coordination with what DOT's threshold is. I want to say DOT's threshold is actually 2,000. Is it 2,000? It might be that. But what ours is 1,000 or more than 100 peak trip or more than 100 trips during peak hours. So what they have done is done a memo of understanding, basically saying, hey, based off of the engineer whatever thing of the traffic, based off the intensity of the use, that it's 23. I believe it would increase with 23 trips during peak hours, which is below the threshold. Our engineers reviewed that, agrees, and does not. There's really what has been recommended is there's no additional
So
studies
it's not
needed.
required?
Well, they met the requirement by providing that documentation.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then my other question, or just a comment on this, is the Newtown, I personally believe Meadowlark has the right to approve or deny based on private property rights, but I'm very concerned about having an ingress egress off of Newtown, given that you've got ZEPSA being developed right up the road, and there are already concerns about safety there. You've got the roundabout, and then you also have the roundabout at Marvin School. The second question I had was regarding sewer. I see that you do have a sewer easement. Can you explain where that runs, and does that go to the pump station, which is
actually-
already having problems?
That
with?
is not a confirmed easement.
It is not a confirmed easement. Okay,
not
thanks,
yet.
Kelly. So can you talk a little bit about what would be required for that?
So that easement is located down on Meadowlark, right here next to this adjacent home. is how it would run too. It would connect to the manhole that connects off of the same one from Heritage. So a lot of that infrastructure is already built and easier to tie into, so it's less of a disruption for the residents along Meadowlark. This does not go to any of the pump stations that are having issues. I believe, Hunter, if you can correct me, it goes up to Charlotte.
What their proposed plan would be to gravity feed down to the Broadmoor pump station, which is then pumped to the 6 Mile, the 6 Mile Creek as part of the agreement with Union Water and Charlotte Water.
Yeah, so that's 6 Mile Creek. So that is one of the pump stations that has increased the smell where it used to be down Marvin. That smell now starts at Newtown. And it doesn't appear that that pump is being serviced correctly. So that is a concern for me. Have you confirmed with Union County that you have that sewer easement?
No, they have to confirm with Meadowlark.
Correct.
So
It would be granted by our HOA.
Got it. And that has not occurred to date, just like the ingress egress? Okay. If they do not grant that, do you have a different plan for sewer? Right. You would go to septic. Okay. And then where would septic fit in this plan?
It would be a completely different
Completely
plan.
different
It'd be totally different.
They
Got
would
it.
have to come back
Line-
through
was
the
it-
process.
Sorry, hold on, Rob, was it 21, what was your, because I asked you this and. With septic.
If you went to septic. Okay.
And it may be 20 and it may be 22, but we just did it, it was a rough, I don't know how to do this, so the engineers told me.
It's a shared septic for the neighborhood then basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
each line would
Oh,
have.
Each would have their own.
Each had their own.
They would have to be bigger lots then, I'd imagine, yeah.
And so now we're also back to, well, besides Rob calls it his ugly plan.
Oh,
It was
his
the
ugly plan.
Right, that's what,
Similar to what we did at the gates of Marvin.
so,
Which are 2.5 acres, I should add. They're 2.5 acres each, should add that.
yeah.
It's an acre is all it takes.
So,
We just chose what we said.
and that is, remind me, Rob, because I know I peppered you with a ton of questions in our meeting with the homeowners. If you were to do 21 septic, how would the tree removal happen? Because like I know the treatment of the first neighborhood on the Odell property, there was a lot of the trees came down so that you could build up and then replant. How would the tree preservation work with a 21 lot septic plan?
Probably defer to Hunter on that question. I don't know how, we would have to take down more trees so we could.
Kind of a mechanical question here. If we approved a 24 lot division that included sewer and other things, we would have to come back to us and to the village board for approval of a 21 septic lot that required
Yeah, so
changes.
for clarification, so if the rezoning gets approved, and, which most of the time, at these preliminary stages of rezoning, they're going for the zoning, right? So like the stormwater, some of these other elements, like, yes, that's what they're proposing, but there's still other approvals after the fact that they go into full 100% engineering drawings and go through those processes. If they are unable to then obtain an easement, or tie into the sewer in some form or fashion, to make this plan work, really the two options are, one, they would come back to do an amendment and basically do a whole site plan amendment, be the same process as it's going through now, so think of it as just a whole nother rezoning. Or two, after their vested rights period ends, the zoning would just revert back to its current zoning. So, so it's kind of one of those things of like, those two elements are kind of put into place because not everything is 100% always figured out during this time of the rezoning, because that's a cost.
You would say, in short, that we're protected against the ugly plan then, against the 21 lot septic plan, even if we approved 24 lot current as proposed. We
Yeah,
aren't
because-
accidentally approving a 21 septic plan with like Les Pond or something like that.
No, I
It
mean,
would
so-
It would have to come back to us.
Yeah, so let me double check, but essentially what our ordinance says, there's major minor modifications of a conditional zoning. Minor modifications, I believe it's up to 10%, and typically in a reduction, minor modifications are allowed administratively, major have to go through the whole, like I said, amendment and rezoning process again. At a minor modification, it may allow, yes, like certain lot reductions, but at that point, they would be amending other aspects of the adopted plan that would probably fall outside of that 10%, i.e., for example, open space. They would be reducing their open space that they committed to per this from 50 maybe down to 30, but that would then be considered a major modification. So even though the lot reduction part of it may be a minor modification,
It might be, actually. Yeah.
the other aspects that it may impact the plan most likely would have to be a major modification.
Before we're asked to vote, could we get an analysis of that?
We're not voting,
Not today, obviously.
Right.
I mean, at some point we are, though, right?
at some point,
Right,
yes.
so I'm asking before that vote, before we are required to vote, could we have an analysis that would indicate what would happen if they had to do septic and whether it would be considered a minor modification? Because if we are all accidentally approving
Yep.
a 20-lot, like, clear cut because it was a minor modification, I think that might affect some people's decision-making process.
And I'll add too, all conditional zonings have a development agreement that kind of outline what approved upon conditions. And so even if hypothetically, everything checked out where it would be a minor modification and can be administratively approved. And if they agree, they could potentially say that, any
It's a big
changes in the.
condition or something.
Correct.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I just want to make sure that we don't accidentally vote for something we're not voting for because the sewer was not available. And then by right, they're like, oh, well, it was a minor modification, so we're cool. And I wouldn't blame them, obviously, but like, we need to make sure we know what we're voting
Once
for.
again, we can make that I make that
An
note.
analysis
It's
point, yeah.
Just, any condition, once again, has to be mutually agreed
Yeah,
upon, so.
thank you.
Well, and I agree with that, because I would hate to have what happened with Zepso, where it was a minor modification to add 2 buildings. So I have 2 more questions, and then I'll wrap this up, because I know it's been a long night on this one topic, and we have another one. Really quickly, the trees. Can we pull the tree plan back up? So the 3 that you proposed to take down are the 3 largest, and you did say that, so thank you for stating that. But one thing that I was looking up was they're probably in the 250, could be pushing over 300 years range. Did you guys look at that? Because those are like founding, father tree level. And do you know exactly where they are in this plan?
Yeah, so 2 of them are located over in this area.
Okay.
I've got a updated version, which we can include in the next presentation. I've marked those as just a different color, just to kind of help clarify a little bit in that exhibit, but they're kind of right here where this roadway is. We can't really push left any due to Meadowlark and the buffer, so we can't really push that roadway outside of those. The last one, Hunter, if you scroll down, believe, if I remember correctly, is right down here at this pond, kind of within the berm. If we can work and reshape the pond, which is something we're currently studying, just trying to kind of figure out the best optimization for these systems, that one can potentially be saved, for sure. This was just
And
kind
so
of a
there's one
preliminary.
by the SCM.
Yes, one by the SCM, that's this first SCM here. I believe it's right in this spot. I'd have to double check, but I believe it's that one.
Okay, and so you're going to look to see if you could potentially save that one?
Yeah, I would definitely be reviewing our plan to see if there's a way I can modify it. We are pinched here with these SCMs. There is an existing wetland here, so we're trying not to disturb this. You can disturb 1/10 of an acre of wetlands. You have to go through NCDEQ permitting, talk to the Army Corps. There's a lot of coordination with that effort. So we're trying to not disrupt any existing wetlands. This,
Yeah, that's the
this
wetland.
area.
Yeah, that area.
Yeah, this kind of triangle piece.
Well, and even if it's adjacent to the SCM, the erosion could ultimately end up taking it out long-term anyway, to Mark's earlier point, and Marcus and John. Thank you for answering that. I would love if you could have put a road around those trees, but I understand you've got the pond. The last question is, Rob, you made a comment in the community meeting that you were going to work with the church on that GPR study. Hunter, I would like to get a copy of that. Were you able to work with them? Did they get to pick the vendor?
Yeah, so I was caught off guard that night. I've never been asked that before. So what I did was I gave my card to a couple people, and I said, please contact me. I'll meet you anywhere. I have not heard back from those people. I also emailed the church the next morning, Pastor John. I believe.
Pastor John, yeah.
And got an email back from him maybe a week and a half later that said that the elders were meeting, and that he would get back to me. I believe that meeting was going to be on March 16th. I've not heard back. But instead of waiting, I went ahead and hired UES, who's an engineering firm that does ground penetrating radar that goes around and checks for graves, because I was concerned about it. Again, I'd never been asked that question before, and you could tell I was caught a little off guard that night because I didn't really know what it was. So UES has done a ground penetrating radar. They started at the Lett property, and they went in the entire area of the cemetery back 100 feet, and I provided that report to Hunter, and all they found was they found one boulder, and everything else was tree roots.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'd love to see that. The only comment I'll make on that is, you know, with a community, you want to build trust, and like you did shake the pastor's hand and give them the opportunity. And it is a small church; they do take time to get back to people. But I think it would have been really important to have them involved in the selection of that vendor. So I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I would have liked to see them a little more involved.
Me too.
Yeah.
That makes two of us. But I could only wait so many times and ask so many people. And so at that point, I knew it was a concern. And whenever it's a concern, I try to jump on it as quickly as possible. You can check UES's credentials.
And you said it's UES?
UES. It's a local. I don't know if they're nationwide or what, but they have the branch here did it.
Okay,
Or
thank
the
you.
office here did.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so they'll, like I said, take some of, these comments, questions, prepare, look at revising some of their site plan. One of the other things I just wanted to mention real quick that came out of some of the just initial feedback and comments and stuff that we've heard is regarding, like, obviously building separation and stuff. So they went up on the setbacks and minimum lot width on this current plan. It's still the same product. The other thing that we've actually discussed, so meaning that where the minimum at the Heritage across the street is a minimum of 5-foot side setback, so a minimum 10-foot separation of buildings, they went up to a 7.5. But what we also then discussed is potentially doing kind of like a floating type setback. So what that means is that looking at like having a minimum separation requirement of 15 to 20 feet. And that's stuff we'll kind of discuss coming up the next meeting, but allowing where potentially the side setback can be a minimum of 5 feet, but making sure that building separation is 20 feet with the larger lots and stuff and being the same product. It's a 60 by 60 pad, I believe, for the homes. It provides where they can kind of adjust where the home goes on the property. So then it creates more of that visual building separation throughout. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that they've already taken some of that initial feedback and currently proposing that 80-foot minimum lot width as well as the minimum of 7.5 side setbacks. But there's other discussion of potentially making sure that visual of the building separation is also making sure that's being addressed as part of this.
Offhand, do you remember what the setbacks are for rural residential?
It's 16 feet, I think, on the side.
What about back?
I think it's 40, 40, 16. It might be 50, 40,
And that's
16.
just a setback, that's not a no-cut buffer.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and so then, once again, they'll be back at the May meeting, and I'll have my staff report, and we'll kind of go into further discussion. Most likely will still be maybe a June, depending on how much we get through the development agreement and some of these proposed conditions. But staff will be working with the applicant to get all that stuff ready for you guys for consideration in May.
All right, moving on to the review of Marvin Commons Civil Plan.
Okay. Thanks, guys. If you want. It's up to you. So real quick, I know we do have some new members, but essentially, in the MDO, when it was being created, it came up as part of the discussion, difference between administrative decisions and decisions that, under the old ordinance, that the planning board and council were making. Under the old ordinance, you had a sketch plan of preliminary construction plans and final plat. all of that went to council for approval, but really all those are administrative decisions per 160D. However, it was still then advised to potentially still have planning board do a courtesy review per the ordinance. So, so essentially, this is basically a courtesy review. My goal of this is basically you guys take a look at it and potentially ask questions or note anything that you may recall from the rezoning or anything that you guys have specific questions on regarding these. But the plans have been reviewed by myself and the village engineer, and all has been found to be compliant with their rezoning plan, our ordinance, as well as our engineering standards. They also have already received approval from DEQ for their post-construction stormwater permit, as well as their sedimentation and erosion control permit. They're in the process of getting their permanent driveway permit with NCDOT, which requires some of those intersection improvements that were part of the, identified in the TIA for that rezoning. And then same thing there, and they have submitted their water and sewer plans to the county for review and approval there. So they're moving forward on getting all those applicable agency approvals. Once they do receive those, they will they can start land development. But ultimately, I don't know what you guys, this is kind of, like I said, kind of a first time we're doing this with these plans. So I don't know where to really kind of start. Like I said, it's one of these things that it's a courtesy thing. And I've got, let's see.
Could you, I don't know if it's the internet or my computer, but I'm having a very hard time pulling up the documents again. Could you go to the setbacks, the area that's showing the setbacks along the back of the abutting property?
You're talking about where the townhomes are being proposed?
Yes, please.
So yeah, one second.
And because once something leaves our desks, we don't always hear the end result. So I think I requested a 25-foot,
Yeah, so.
but increased to a 25-foot buffer, so is that what the council approved?
Correct. Yeah, this is, so this is their construction documents, but they have, in their construction documents, their approved rezoning plans. So that was the type D buffer, if I recall, which is a 40-foot average, or it might be the type C, so it's a 30-foot average, minimum of 25 down to, no, it's type B. I get A, B, and C, all those mixed up. So it's a type B buffer, which is a minimum of a 30-foot buffer average, with a minimum of 25 up to a maximum of 40 feet. So they do comply with that, of what was approved as part of the rezoning, as well as their construction documents. We, myself, Lucas, and Keith O'Haron actually walked that boundary as well to look at trees, because in their tree survey, there were certain trees that were in that buffer that were being proposed to be removed. Based off of Keith's analysis of them, he's recommended them to be removed, and they'll be mitigated. It's reflected on these plans. So all those went into the review and part of the comments that they revised as part of these final plan documents.
Where are the majority of the mitigated trees going to go? Are they going to go back into the buffer, or are they going to go onto a different place in the?
Both. Just one sec. So you can see kind of this is the detail. So they would be planting, obviously, some street trees per our ordinance requirement that would meet as mitigation calculation, but as well as the enhancements back here to create, achieve the mitigation for tree removal, but at the same time also create a good a visual screen between the adjacent properties. There is a good amount of slope between here. It's actually, when you go walk it, like, you kind of see it, and it flattens out towards, yeah.
They're a lower, okay.
But Keith did review this plan as well, and he was satisfied with the species as well as the, what's the word, intensity of the plantings, I believe. And so, trust me, I was one of those things that there were certain trees that were identified, and that was addressed in my comments, and then it was one of those things like the engineer was working to potentially preserve them, but it was one of those things like we wanted to get Keith's opinion as well. And when Keith walked it, he was like, it's not worth it, especially with what they're proposing to be planted back.
What, What were some of the changes that were made from the approved plan to this document that you noted or made comments on, since we didn't get to see the?
I mean, there were no, from a zoning aspect of their actual plan, nothing. There was no changes. This was their third submission from a plan review standpoint, so they first submitted back in like November. We reviewed, provided comments. Second submission, same thing. The biggest thing on my initial comments were regarding the buffer and trees. One example was, let's see, not there, right in this area. So,
I think we should all be issued planning board like little spy glasses.
I'm trying to make sure it
So that we
zooms
can read some of
in.
these if we don't have like, you know what I mean? Oh my God, I'm serious. Like, we need like a telescope to read some of this stuff.
So one of the changes is here, and I might have to go up to their grading and their stormwater, but you have stormwater that runs off of Tyndall here that they have to collect in part of their stormwater management plans. So they actually had like an open swell and stuff here, and that's where they were also proposing to cut down some additional trees that were in that buffer.
Have an open swell and
So it's like.
trees, like, can you? Yeah.
Yes, well, that's what so this is one of the revisions that they made. Like, if I go pull up their probably first plans, like, it's not showing.
Sorry, my computer is just like, it's just spinning.
The internet started working again.
Okay, so it's not just my
It wasn't
Mac.
just you, but it just
Okay.
started again a couple minutes
I was like, my Mac's like, I don't have enough space. I'm like, that's a lie. That's a lie.
It's the internet.
So, so this is something that, you know, was addressed there in my initial comments, and they looked at ways to divert and get that. I kind of wish Skylar would have stayed, because Skylar was the engineer on these plans and can probably explain it a whole lot better than me. But they were able to basically get that bypass swell and stuff designed to capture that water and take it to the stormwater pond, as well as.
Is it like an
get-
underground system or like a, like,
So that's the other thing, like, they could have piped it, but at the same time, it's, when you can treat it through an open swell, it's better. It provides opportunity for it to infiltrate, to, you know, water the vegetation. So the plantings that are specific in this area are ones that are help for that, for one, soil stabilization, but as well as that thrive and kind of those. So it's more of like, think of it similar to what we're doing out here at this pond, with the type of plantings that we're doing. So that was like one of the big significant changes, and because I'll go show you on, this is the landscape.
and they're connecting
one.
to sewer through the back of the property to that cul-de-sac there?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think there was an existing easement that went up to the property already. If not, it's the same concept. They had to get that easement from that property owner, but I'm pretty sure the plat had the sewer easement tied to the property, so then therefore they're just tying in at that easement. And it was a platted easement, but there was no line, so they would be extending the sewer through the easement to tie into the manhole in that cul-de-sac, if that makes sense.
Okay. And where did they land on parking?
So.
'Cause that was a big hot button.
That's one thing I do want to clarify. Thanks, Kelly, for bringing that up. So the rezoning was for, I think, 165 square foot commercial component on top of then 68, 72 townhomes, 13 single-family homes. Jones Homes is submitted these plans specifically for the land development. So they're doing the initial land development, grading, stormwater, all that stuff for the whole development. The actual final piece of like the commercial component is a different element of this. So regarding like the parking layout, the final building design, that will come back through the same process kind of.
Okay, so we're
but
just looking at the residential.
for the most part, yes.
Plat, okay. Okay, so then we need, okay, because that was my next question was, how are they buffering the backs of the commercial?
To the residential.
Because that was, no, not even for the residential, because they actually had a plan for that. I want to know how they're buffering the backs of the commercial to Ray Road.
Yeah, that's not.
So that we're not getting like the Starbucks garbage cans. We're looking at that while we're
Oh,
passing.
you mean like to make it
At
like Marvin
Kohl's.
Garden instead of Railroad? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, the
So,
Cole,
yeah,
the Cole, that Cole
yeah,
shopping center
the
there,
Kohl's
like,
one,
you're just
yeah.
looking at
Mhm.
everyone's back trash and
Yeah.
stuff, so that was one of my requests when they were doing this.
So that is a
was-
specific condition of their approval, if I recall. And so therefore,
Did the village, like, approve did the council approve? All, okay.
So therefore, once again, it would be the same concept with the parking. Whenever that commercial component, so they're doing, like I said, the initial grading, utility and installation, all that stuff for the commercial component. When the commercial component comes back, think of it as when we did Marvin Gardens, like the phase 2. You remember those?
Yep.
I know for some of you it's newer, but like that initial site was already graded, utility connections and all that. So think of it like kind of like that. So they'll come back with the like final layout of where the buildings are going and the parking. We'll review it to make sure it complies with the MDO from the parking standard standpoint. We'll also then, they'll have
Sorry,
their,
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but so based on the way it's graded, we'll determine the size of the buildings and the parking spaces? Like, so they could, like, let's say they were approved for X amount of spaces per commercial square footage.
I think it was
And
400.
let's say that the grading dictates something different, right? Because you want to always build with the land. So they can come in with less square footage and less parking. They can't obviously go over what was approved. So are you saying that we could see a slightly different plan based on grading?
Let's see. So one, not necessarily, no, because it's kind of locked into that development node of where it's at. They're also capped at the size of the building and the amount of square footage for commercial.
Right, they can't go any higher, but they could go reduce.
Correct.
Without triggering, Reed, this was your question about,
Without
it wouldn't re-trigger, it wouldn't
No.
trigger a.
No, the amount of commercial would not, like I said, if they decide to do less, like that's within their own development,
We're
right?
kind of done with the commercials.
Well, it will come back from you, come similar to this, that we'll review the construction
We haven't
documents
even,
for sure.
we haven't even seen it
Yes.
yet.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so this is
I
the
didn't know.
first, this is the first thing that's come through, is
Yeah.
just the residential section, yeah.
But at
didn't
that,
even know that they could do
and it's
that.
the
I thought
same
they had to
thing.
do it
I
outside.
had a lot of conversations with CEC, the engineering firm, on, you know, when it was approved, they had a certain amount of open space, certain amount, like certain elements of that, and how is that going to be achieved when you kind of have two different plans that is all part of one big plan?
Yeah.
And so basically what was then discussed, and especially from like the open space, they are making sure that their portion achieves the open space requirement for the residential portion.
Okay,
Which
say
in-
that again.
So I think it's
There.
Jones Homes.
Jones Homes is, okay, say the whole thing again, because I didn't quite follow
Okay,
you.
so like, take this plan right here, for example. So all the green is potentially what is considered like open space buffer per the ordinance, if I recall. Or no, that's previous drainage area. I'm looking at the wrong plan, or the wrong section of the plan. It's harder to do this when it's on the screen, so give me one sec. Go find.
Did you say that Jones Homes is taking on the open space requirement for the
Yeah.
entire,
No.
So just for their-
Maybe, because I'm confused too.
Okay.
Honestly, like, so
he
it's one
mumbles, so
lot,
you
but
gotta
it's
make it,
two
you gotta
different-
make him articulate,
It's
so.
two different, like, sections of one lot.
Correct.
But is the open space requirement for the whole lot?
Yeah.
Are they divided between two developers? Like, how does that work? There maybe just,
We,
It-
and
it
we've
is,
never,
so-
Chris, we've never seen a development like this where different people are developing different parts of it. Normally, it's
Yeah,
one,
this
co-
is
it's
like what they
one
did with the
entity
Millbridge or
developing the
something.
entire thing and then leasing out to different businesses. So this is kind of new for all of us.
yeah, so could you explain from the top, maybe?
Yeah, okay, sorry. So when the development as a whole was approved, it was, I believe, I think it was 15% open space, and they had to have certain open space components, meaning like the difference between a buffer and actually being usable open space, like think of, if you're familiar with Marvin Gardens, in between where Marco's Pizza's at and the Mexican restaurant, there's a little like planting box art. That's kind of like a quote-unquote active area of open space that they count towards their calculation. When they were doing this, it was kind of hard because it was one of those things of like, how do we figure out the number? And so essentially what was decided when you think, or, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but is if the residential takes the acreage of the residential portion and they're achieving the 15% open space requirement in that acreage alone, then, and the commercial would have to do the same thing, then it's achieving the 15% for the whole development. So that's,
Leaning on the residential for the open space.
No, that's what I'm saying.
They have to do the same in both
Correct.
sides.
That's how, that was one of the, during the first review, that was one of the things that I noted and was brought up, was like, how are we, you know, because it's like, we're approving this, but what if I'm not here? What if, you know, how, certain elements of like making sure that this gets done as what was approved. And so we broke it up as the residential making sure that they achieve 15%, and the commercial still has to achieve 15%.
Each
So
of
you're
them
taking
have
like
to
the-
achieve their 50%
Yeah.
in their own
Not like
right.
one's
Right.
getting more than the other.
Correct. So you're so it's approved as one big plan, but think of it
Try
as,
to look at it separately then, because it's not like one's leaning on the other
Correct.
to execute
So,
to a standard.
so what this review, during this review, we were making sure it achieved what the ordinance and rezoning plan requirements were specifically for the acreage portion of the residential,
Okay.
from an open space and all
So
that.
there's no contingency whatsoever between the commercial and the residential in the concept of open space or anything at
Say
all? Like,
contingency.
there's no like tie together between these two
No.
commercial, they're being treated effectively, even though they're not legally separate parcels
Correct.
effectively?
Correct. So it's like that, because that was the thing, was like, hey, if the residential was doing only 8%, so then that puts 7% on the
Yeah, yeah.
commercial, but then the commercial developer came back and said, hey, we're not able to achieve this, that's a problem.
Right.
And so I'd rather go ahead and make sure that this is met here, which in theory, like I said, because if you're breaking out the acreage, it's gonna make sure that the 15% of the total acreage of the development is met.
And how is this going to flow? So will Jones Homes start their portion? I know they're grading the whole site, but will they start their portion first? Like, is the expectation that the residential will be built first and then move inward to the commercial, or vice versa, or all of it together? I know that's like, the
So I know
construction will be
I know that the commercial developer's in the process of obtaining, tenants, I guess, and that's where they're trying to, ensure that their final design meets some of their, I
They're
guess.
going to come to us with uses, actually. in
No, the use is
place.
already proposed, or sorry, not proposed, the use is already adopted a part of the rezoning plan.
Right, but how they're actually fulfilling the uses.
Correct. So essentially, because they're not going to necessarily build a 20,000 square foot building if they maybe have two sub-tenants per se that only need 10,000 square feet. So they're trying to make sure that they have roughly like their anchors and their certain like commitments to then finalize how they want their building and the parking. Because there's some of those businesses too have them themselves have requirements of how much parking they need for their business to
So just to
operate.
clarify, so on the pages, say 10 and 9, that's like different hypothetical visions of how the commercial would work out, right?
Yeah, so I
Like,
think
they got one's got a grocery with different parking requirements, and one's got more retail with different parking requirements. There's different layouts.
Correct,
So
so-
that was
They
still
didn't-
within the
yeah,
rules.
they didn't
Get a
have,
final, yeah.
they didn't know who was going to be the anchor,
Of course,
so.
yeah, but they could
They
build.
had to, to make the, what is that? What is the, you must build it
Build
before
it so
they.
they can, build it, so- if you build it, they will come.
Thank you, like, but you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Field of dreams.
Field of dreams.
Oh my God,
So yes,
exhausting.
to clarify, when the rezoning got approved, these are the conceptual plans. This is ideally what they're proposing.
Potentially.
It's just they do have per that approved zoning to have some flexibility exactly where the buildings kind of go in certain elements. But they are capped at like, I think the maximum building, they can only have one, is it 40 or 50,000 square foot building? And the rest, I think, have to be less than, I think, 20,000 on top, but they're still capped at the total square footage allowed. And then that's where these other elements of the zoning still then kind of apply how then the site gets developed with the minimum parking requirements, landscaping and buffering and all that. So,
So we won't really see, they do need to have people on board in order to determine what the design
Yeah.
will ultimately be. So we could even see something slightly different than this.
Yeah, and
because they have to play, they'll be playing
pencil
with the,
drawings,
yep.
like, once again, it goes into like the whole anchor tenant, like if you take Marvin Gardens, you knew Publix, so you're gonna have an anchor tenant. If you have an anchor tenant, then that allows for basically, they're gonna own the property or be the main point of contact there. It allows for those smaller retail spaces to kind of, open up and freely be. Harris Teeter was a partner, still is a partner as
They're an
one-
owner.
Yeah, that's a partnership in the owner.
They are a partial
But
owner.
that was one thing that was unclear with the rezoning is they were,
Yes, they're.
David Miller with Rayleigh Miller Properties, who is the other partner with Harris Teeter, was unsure if Harris Teeter wanted to do a location here.
The whole thing.
So that's why you have one of these proposals that have the grocery anchor and one that has, I guess, what they call is like kind of two secondary anchors there. But
And there were no, so in terms of uses, did the council stick with the uses that were recommended, or did they nix anything? Like, there's no drive-throughs, there's no, mattress stores.
There's no gas stations. Give me,
We were kind of like hardcore on it, so.
give me one sec. Actually, it should be right here. Right here in their development standards.
I don't know who would want to put a gas station there.
So the rezoning was to mixed use two. The property was rezoned to conditional zone mixed use two. So what that means is basically they were permitted any of those uses in the mixed use two
In the
unless it
mixed
was,
use,
agreed upon to be prohibited. So they prohibit, so these uses that are prohibited were technically allowed in the mixed use two district per Article 8, but they are self-restricting, or they agreed to self-restrict these uses, which is daycare, batting cage, billiard parlor, bingo games, bowling alley, coin-operated, self-storage. I can keep going, but pretty much the big scary stuff. I know that the gas station came up, that falls under service station, so it's prohibited. They also limit the amount of drive.
Combination of uses
Yeah.
to prohibit. Like
So-
a batting cage and a gas station or two.
So some of it is, so the zoning ordinances, the ordinances that we approved this last big round have all these uses that are only in certain areas. So mixed use two has, do these things, I can't remember, Hunter, do these things, because the binder is, wait till you get your binder, it'll break your back. Were these things included in mixed use two, or were
Correct.
these, okay,
And so that, and once again, that's conventional, like if a property was just base zone mixed use two, that
They
would all
have-
be by right.
they have by
uses.
right, they could, I mean, man, we're not gonna get bingo games now. No one's gonna be yelling bingo.
Yeah, so therefore, these were the ones that were, once again, kind of points of contention, ones that, were recommended by staff, and at the same time, some of these were even recommended by the actual developer as kind of a give and take type thing. The service station, like I said, was one of the biggest ones that was discussed, because the applicant during the rezoning process did want to have the flexibility to have a gas station.
Because there is nothing
Planning board,
on that
staff,
road.
council did
There's, like,
not,
no
and
gas.
ultimately, they decided to not have the gas station. But with the drive-through uses, that's another thing, I think, where's that?
Because I know in Marvin Gardens, there are drive-throughs.
Correct, but it's limited to certain, and I know that they also have one of those restrictions, so once again, a mutually agreed upon condition that's a specific restriction to this development. I think it's only limited to 2, maybe 4.
Because this is a much smaller commercial development than Marvin Gardens, so
Yeah.
it requires a different kind of parking layout, and Marvin Gardens was hard enough to do drive-throughs
They
with,
can barely make those drive-throughs.
oh, they were worse before we got a hold of them.
We barely turn on those.
Kelly, Hunter, I have a question
Mm-hmm.
regarding, it looks like on some, sorry, thank you. So
It is.
in some of these, and I'm sorry, I was looking at Chris's computer because he still had up the plot. In some of the plots, it looks like, and what was approved, it looks like a roundabout.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the engineering plans, it was a four-way stop.
Are you talking about like in the middle of the commercial?
Yeah.
So
Now,
I guess-
and maybe that's because we're not looking at that. Is that accurate?
Correct. So like I
Okay.
said, when they're doing, so let's go down to like the grading and the infrastructure. Let's see.
Yeah, that's the one at 11 is what was up on my
Yeah, and
screen.
those are,
Slide 11.
and that's all just
It's just
design.
hypothetical design.
Correct.
It's just,
Right.
like, based on if you have a larger anchor tenant or a smaller anchor tenant, you have more room to do that type of circular design, you know.
So.
It's just safer. It would be nice. I think,
Yeah,
to
and
keep
I
it.
mean, like I said, the engineering firm that did these plans are also the ones that are doing the commercial component. So it's not like you don't have like, the right hand talking to the left hand type thing. But it's just, like I said, they just have not finalized that design. So like, they'll be grading for the stormwater, for the water and sewer connection to basically go ahead and install that main line through where the road, the initial kind of, let me phrase that. So let me go back up just to
And so-
clarify. So like essentially like the placement and location of where this road, like how these connect is kind of pretty much happening. It's more of like where the parking, where the building, certain alignments are going. So they'll have this graded and have the water and sewer taps ready, or not taps, but like I said, where then they can kind of further make sure it's tapped to where the buildings go. To answer your question about the four-way versus the roundabout, like I said, I think that's just, it's not fully set in stone yet on their final design of element of that. I know during the rezoning and dating back to even their 2015 plan, they did propose like a fountain kind of roundabout there to be kind of a grand entrance, and I think that's still their intent to do something that way.
Is that part of their development agreement, or not, is
No.
that
I
not
don't,
necessarily a
I don't
requirement?
think, no.
Okay.
And Kristen, just for you and Chris and Mark, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but with this commercial conditional zoning, what will happen is even if they don't have all of their tenants in place so that they fully know who will be occupying the outbuildings and things like that, we'll get the first round of it. And then we will, every time they add something on and it changes slightly, they will continue to come. We're still looking at things for Marvin Gardens.
Right, well, I remember.
Right, so this will be a continuous process and relationship with this particular parcel, correct? Or do they have to have the whole thing?
They'll have the whole
Because that's not
thing.
how we did it with Marvin Gardens.
No,
It
because
was-
that's also the old ordinance with the design review board, and that was a mess. I mean, we still do it with that, but because the ordinance has changed, that part's not necessarily still a component of their like approval and stuff. What you guys will review is basically the exact same thing we're doing now. You do have a little bit more authority in that sense because it's commercial, so you can, I'll have to double check the ordinance, but that's where, like, from a commercial standpoint, when you're getting into the elevations and those aesthetic design and certain things, like, they may actually have to technically get a planning board recommendation, but I'll have to double check what the ordinance says from the commercial aspect
Planning
of
board or
it.
design review board, or do we
Well, like I
still?
said, we don't have the design review board anymore,
You got rid of
technically.
that, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
we have
You
so
still-
many titles sometimes. I
Like,
don't
you
know
will
which
still
hat we're wearing.
you will still act that way when Marvin Gardens out parcel 3 and 4 get proposed, just like we did with the Whataburger last year. Like, even though the new ordinance didn't have the design review board, that old ordinance, or the Marvin Gardens ICD, was locked into what that ordinance said at the time, which said the design review board
Right.
process.
I guess like, if we're saying that we're gonna have to come up on the commercial soon, I guess the focal point then, in my mind, is the buffers on the residential that's existing there and the residential being put in. So we have the question about the swales and the trees and everything like that on the left side, this strip going up. Can we talk a little, just maybe explain a little more about what the plan is there? Because if we're only voting on, or only evaluating, I should say, we're not voting, only evaluating the residential side.
Well, and we're not even, this is more of a,
Well, yeah.
Just understanding it.
this is just a FYI for us.
Oh.
Well,
So we really,
At the same time,
because
you guys,
that's also, those things, some of those things are approved by the engineers and like,
Sure.
you know,
I
people with.
mean, I would like to understand. like-
but, no, this is.
You can point out deviations from the
Yeah,
development.
Right.
yeah.
You can, the
Yes,
questions
okay.
you were asking and everything is exactly how I expected this to go, because I want you to, ask, hey, once again, I remember in the rezoning, we talked about this, is this, that's kind of the intent of this, and, once again, to point out things that the more eyes, the better. But at the end of the day, it is an administrative decision, but it still is helpful for myself, as well as even the engineer, because there could be certain things that you guys still point out that, how do I say this, like, for example, the trees. Like, if we go look at, like, the proposed plantings and stuff, like, one of you guys could say, I'm just using this as a complete example, that, hey, we don't think those species really kind of match what should be there. And then I can go back to them and say, hey, can we look at revising the planting species and stuff to be oaks over magnolias?
But the Park and Recs guy, sorry, I'm terrible with names. Keith's already looked at this though, right? Yeah.
I mean, once again, like, but still, you guys
Yeah.
have, just, I mean, this is input. I mean, it's input that I can go back and potentially, like, it's,
But, so I guess the point of input you're really looking for is
Yeah.
around the residential, though, at this point?
Correct, yes.
Essentially, that's it, okay.
So I have a question, because I know one of the things really important to Somerset, being that they were adjacent, is the opacity. And they promise species related to that. Can you show us what those species are?
Yep.
And then, given the swell, are they going to be able to commit to the opacity they discussed
yeah, so
originally?
like I said, that swell has been addressed. So essentially, here's what their Class B kind of looks like. So here's the plantings. So this is a thing in a 100-foot. So this is kind of once again showing the intensity. I do think, let's see, there is a minimum opaqueness of the type B. Can you, I'd have to pull it up in NDO, but I know there's ordinance requirements here. But this is what their proposed plantings are for the type B and type, the 40-foot and the 25-foot. Like I said, that's what has been reviewed by Keith. I would have to go back to the comments because there could have been something Keith could have said like, hey, this is how typically he responds is like, for example, once again, this is just hypothetical. Like he might say like, the purple bow maple don't strive here in this type of soil, potentially look at, some other alternatives that are closely but still achieve kind of that same caliper and height and stuff. And so all that gets into his feedback regarding that.
And where is his feedback? So like, in terms of, does he make it to you? Does he, because like, and this is the same for any rezonings when we're talking about opacity or opacity, because I still don't know. If anyone would like to look it up and give me the phonetic spelling, I'd be happy to listen to you. Huh?
Opacity.
You know, okay, I got your number now. It's just, that's pretty critical because no one wants to look at the back of someone else's house. So he is actually going through and saying, yes, this achieves X percent opacity.
It is meeting, yes, it is meeting the density or intensity, I should say, intensity requirements per the ordinance and what they agreed to in their conditional zoning. The actual boots on the ground, a lot of these are I know that they're proposing like the evergreen screening and certain elements at the back from the townhomes to the adjacent residential, and then additional plantings kind of there to increase that. But that's what this is, take that visual if you call from the rezoning, this is the technical planting plan of that visual.
These are the pom-poms and the
Yeah.
the cotton balls.
Does it look like, to me, it looks like there's less evergreen than
Can
the
you even
other.
see that, Chris?
So this,
Can you even?
Is that, am I accurate in that? Is that an accurate statement, that there's less evergreen?
give me one sec. So it's a hybrid, so you have the Green Giants right here, which is 3, and like I said, this is per 100-foot stretch. You have, oh my God. You have, it's more of a shrub, but at the same time still is the evergreen, evergreen plants and shrubs that kind of still meet that, what was proposed in their rezoning.
There's not a holly in there.
Because this is, once again, they're also mitigating canopy tree, and that's why you have other species as part of this in the planting buffer.
I'm glad it's not my job. That's a lot of names.
Personally, I would like to see more evergreens closer to the homes, and then the larger trees still remain for the tree canopy, just to make sure that they have that year-round buffer versus the shrubs, because those shrubs are not going to be very tall.
So yeah, so this would be, just for context too, so this would be like at the back of Somerset, and this would be the back of the townhomes. So,
There is a height difference, so
Yeah.
there is,
It's kind of going uphill a little
yep,
bit
so
from the top.
Yeah, the
Somerset
townhomes
is
sit
higher
down.
up.
15 feet, the townhomes are roughly 12 to 15 feet higher than the homes.
It's good for them, I guess.
Well, not for
Oh, sorry, the
Somerset.
townhouses are higher.
They're high,
I gotta
wait,
flip
they're
to the
higher,
right, sorry.
they're
building
just in
height-wise,
straight measurement, or actually with the drop in elevation?
yeah, correct. So, and Lucas, your first week, you walked it with us. There is a significance, let's go to, for
Ground
example.
elevation is obviously the townhouse.
Yeah, there is significance. It starts at about, now it does get flatter in this area, and that's where the density
It goes to 40
of the
feet.
plantings get higher. But roughly, it starts about 15 feet, and it's all downhill. So the townhomes are lower than the back of the Somerset properties, like the grade.
Right, but I think what Kristen, I don't know if you were asking a question or stating, the roof line of the townhouses, where does that fall in
It would be
relation to the
from,
Somerset
yeah,
homes?
from essentially like with the change in the elevation and the maximum, the height of the townhomes, it would be in line.
About even, so
Yeah.
within feet. of
It's
each
not
other.
going to be towering.
Yeah, so no one's going to be peering into someone else's backyard or vice versa.
One other thing I do want to point out as we're kind of talking through this, they did update the elevations of the townhomes, so I'm going to share that with you guys as well.
Whoa, that is a big departure from what was approved.
So this is let's go back.
Isn't that in here? It's like
They were all
color
white, they were
design.
all white when
Yeah.
we, but I don't know what, again, I don't know what council approved,
From a material, yeah, they were all white, but they were still brick.
but they were all white. They looked really clean and
With
nice.
some blues mixed in, it looks like.
Yeah, it was.
I'm getting up there.
And it was like a mix of brick and hardy plank and had a nice farm, it was more of a European kind of style,
I think it's in
slightly
his packet,
European.
yeah.
That is more colonial, and
Yeah, so here's what was proposed, and make sure, yeah, the brick, the hardy plank, this is what they have gotten to. Where'd it go? Overall, outside of, yes, the brick change in the color element there, it still kind of is the same architectural
these don't look as
features.
tall as the others. Are they a different
Peak of the roof,
design?
the angle, or is this the angle?
This, I felt like
This-
the original roof line was actually higher than we would normally approve. These don't look quite as tall.
So that was brought up during that rezoning process. So the maximum height of, for the townhomes is 45 feet per the ordinance. That is measured from the grade to the midpoint in the roof pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. But these are 45, the way that they interpreted that when they were designing these was 45 feet from grade to the top of the roof.
So these are
So-
shorter.
So these are actually shorter than what the ordinance depicts as the maximum height allowed. And
So
it-
that's even better for Somerset. Yeah.
Is better, but does that brick, is that a done deal?
I mean, I can provide recommendations to them. I mean, I know that they have shared this with some of the council members, they like them. I mean, but from my standpoint and what the rezoning says, why can I not keep it up?
I don't know if we can control colors. There's like a fine line between,
Well-
like, the state will only let us control so much.
Well, they do have they agreed to architectural design to be tied with their rezoning.
Right, say that
this-
again, I couldn't hear.
So they agreed to architectural design to be tied to the rezoning, meaning that this is what they propose as part of the rezoning. Now, we talked about this with the heritage of like, that can mean materials, color schemes. I mean, it's really kind of open up for interpretation. I'd have to go back through the development agreement to confirm, but essentially, if they're still meeting the intent of the architectural type features as well as the materials, color is subjective, I think, in regards to what we would like. I'm just sharing with what they provided to me as
This
an
is a
update.
pretty different this is a
It's very
completely different.
architecturally different.
Now,
So-
while in some respects, the shorter townhouse benefits Somerset, visually, this is very different than what we,
I'll talk with them
approved.
about that, but that's where, you know, I said I'd have to go back and look
I
at
mean, I
the
get they're
condition.
gonna argue that like the arches and all, like the structural shapes,
eh,
one could argue are comparable, but like they're not at all. I mean, that's not,
that looks very different.
The color, I mean, I think it's the brick compared to having some of the
Well, the brick and that
the entrances
cement
look like alleyways
stone.
almost. It's not-
That's like you're going to a different town. Like, you know, like,
Very almost neo-Gothic-y in the entrances.
honestly, I would like to hear from them why they chose, I kind of wish, I didn't realize, I should have told Rob, no, you should stay, because I didn't know I didn't see this, unfortunately.
I got it after the packets went out. I just want,
Okay, that's why I didn't see it. I was like, I don't remember this, because I would have put it in my
No,
notes.
this wasn't in the
And
packet.
there's no
Yeah, no.
example photos that indicate anything resembling this. The photos in the thing are like home-looking things, like the colors.
I will talk with Rob
They
about
have
the.
they have a tendency to show us one thing and then build something slightly different that does not fit within whatever
So one thing,
design characteristic we've all agreed to.
one thing to consider,
Yeah.
not that, I mean, ultimately is that, and like I said, Rob told me last week about these new elevations, so I had him send them to me for this meeting. I don't know if it has to do with, you know, trying to fit in with the commercial. I don't know if it has to do with trying to fit in with maybe the bricks, the consistency with the brick homes in Somerset. But ultimately, like, yes, I'm in agreement, like, outside of the material and this, like, obviously, that's why color is hard. Because I see it as like, this is the same as what they're proposing with a couple updates out, but the color of the brick is obviously the completely different than
Right,
what's
it's that
proposed
weird,
here.
like-
And it's a
But I-
different, it's a completely different style, and, you know, so,
Yeah, right, it's European
So,
looking almost, yeah.
I'll ask Rob, and potentially we can potentially talk about that at the next meeting. Obviously, he wanted me to share and kind of get some feedback on that as well. But I also want to read how their development agreement, how those conditions read, because there is, like I said, some of that color flexibility within that, because I think.
but is there a development agreement in our packet? Because that's usually what, like, once stuff leaves us, God, this is like really loud. Once things leave the planning board and go to council for approval or non-approval,
No, the
we
development
we never really know unless you're like sitting through council meetings and following up with, I don't know if you have time for that. God bless you, because I don't. I'd like to see like what the actual, it'd be nice to have it come full circle, like close the loop and like let us actually see what was approved, because that's the other thing is, with a new council, I don't understand what they're approving and what they're not approving, and so we become a better board if we understand, if we can actually see what what their sticking points are. We can bring things up, poke holes in things when we send our comments down to them.
And I don't think, just to be clear, I don't think it's just a matter of the color, like.
It's a completely different design.
It's the design, shape, and everything. Because I could say, okay, well, it was white, but they got like a lighter brick. Okay, fine, but like, it's a completely different shape.
So are you a design snob like me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll be fighting on the same team. because-
I do think it's important that they lowered the height for Somerset.
That's a good one.
So I think that should be pointed out as positive, but other than that, I'm going to be honest, I think it's ugly.
I also don't think it's a trade-off, right? You could lower the height on a similar design and have it look similar.
I mean, you
and
could actually
shorter.
tweak that design if you remove some of that
Yeah.
weird chunky.
Peaks on top and everything.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that one, if you just took that weird alleyways off and like,
yeah, and then you
lighten
just
the-
painted the dark, I mean, like, yeah, I think there are beautiful designs out there, but,
this doesn't match what was in
This
the
is a
packet.
much more high-end look.
sorry,
The original is a much more high-end look
I agree.
than
And what they're
the
gonna
current.
be, what they're gonna be selling them for, they
Yeah.
need to be.
Well,
high-end
and what we're going to be measured against.
So, like I said, so in the rezoning, and I'll further look at it with the development agreement, but it does outline like the material roofing and all that. It doesn't necessarily identify like color in full. Like I said, it's completely within, I think, you know, justification of arguing the difference between the farm style versus what's being proposed. And so therefore, like, I'll talk with Rob and come back, because the elevations may have to technically be approved, but I'll have to double check with how that reads.
Okay.
Well, and maybe just say we prefer French country.
Fine.
Well, and it should also, you know, it would be good for, once the council, I mean, now, is the council also getting an FYI on this?
Yeah, they were shown this last week for the most part.
Oh,
Or I know a few of them.
They've already seen this, and none of them commented on this big
I can't say,
departure?
I can't speak for all of them, but I know 2 or 3 at least saw them and thought they looked good, was the feedback they got. So, but I will double check, and like I said, I'll talk with Rob on trying to get this.
Sorry, I'm just acting like you're not even here, I apologize. Can you
I
comment on?
I
you
didn't see
them?
these. I'm seeing these for the first time.
Okay.
Like I said, it was.
What do you think, Bob?
It's our job to advise them on it, right? Like, they've got
Yeah, well, I mean,
topics
it's
on
the bait and switch thing. You don't
Yeah.
want to be bait and switch. Like, if you've
Yeah.
approved something, you've approved it for a specific reason.
Bob, what do you think?
You know, it's aesthetically nice looking, but the other, I agree with you. The white one and that French design seemed more higher end. This is, going back a number of council meetings ago, the issue I have is sometimes things look better on paper, then they show up, and all of a sudden you get surprised.
It's ugly brick.
Yeah, and it's, so when I hear about tree buffers and all that kind of stuff, do I need to say more, at the Heritage of Marvin? I mean, it's like, you don't believe everything you're seeing anymore, it's because changes are made. So I'm surprised, but this is the first time I'm seeing it.
Like I said, Rob, when we had our small group for the development meetings last week, this is the first time I was
Yeah.
told about them, so.
I mean, I remember the prior council was really sticklers on color and all that kind of stuff. They had an opinion of it. And now this is, to your point, Chris, this is a whole different design.
Yeah, it's just different. It's completely
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
So it looks kind of, I'm thinking to
I
myself.
don't even know what it looks like. It doesn't look like,
I-
it looks like a
I'm won-
mishmash of.
Yeah, I'm wondering
Combination
what
of
the
two
rest of the
styles,
commercial is
probably.
gonna look like. Like, are they trying to blend it? Do they know what they need to do?
It's
Just
almost
saying.
like old world
It's-
Italy
we
and
were
then
just saying, the
like
archways are
with
European, but then it's like New York row
colonial-
houses.
Yeah, it's like, it's got,
Yeah.
it doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yeah. It just doesn't fit what was approved, in my opinion, from what is in the packet.
So if you, oh my God, I'm calling you my other work husband.
Kelly, you guys really were not interested in townhomes, but, right, initially, it was
So
a concern you
yeah, so-
had.
Well, townhomes in Marvin, just period, was not, like, we put them in a specific area because the survey stated that people did not want townhomes.
Yeah.
So when this came up, though, because this is a straight-up commercial little area,
Yeah, it's a different area.
it made sense to do something like that, to try it out here, where it is along a commercial corridor.
It's where you'd
You know what I
expect
mean?
something
Like,
like that.
just because it was approved
Yeah.
does not mean that townhouses could necessarily come in any other district or, zoning area. But it made sense to try it out here, where it was a heavily commercial area. Like, you're not gonna put, I was actually surprised they put single-family homes right next to a grocery store. Like, that is just kind of weird to me, but, so,
But I think if Marvin's going to do townhomes, we need to do them well
Well.
and
They should be Marvin
beautifully, and they
townhomes,
should be Marvin-esque.
yes, sorry, that's where you were going. Like, I didn't know you were going there for a second, okay. Yeah, no, I agree. And this is the first time we've ever even approved this, because it was the right situation in a commercial district area. It is the only place.
Very unique property,
It's the only place that we felt could happen, if it were going to happen at all. So, they need to be well done and look good, I agree.
So, yeah, so mainly, I'll provide some, like I said, I'll talk with Rob on the elevations, and I'll try to get that back on the agenda for you guys, to have that input and discussion. And I'll check with how the development ordinance or the development agreement reads, because like I said, that might technically need to be something that you guys review and agree. Same thing with council. But ultimately, is there any other questions on the site plan or construction documents? So.
Thanks for answering our questions.
So with that being said, like I said, their next steps are, once they get all those applicable permits or from those governing agencies, they'll probably begin land development, which will anywhere tentatively probably July to September. I know they do have, their final plat has been initially submitted to the village, so essentially they would be doing like subdividing off the commercial portion. But it hasn't been recorded or approved yet. There were some comments of, once again, making sure that elements of the construction documents are referenced right in the plat, specifically kind of on sewer or stormwater easements and stuff. So,
And so will that also go to council before it comes to us? That's what
No.
it feels like this happened here, but I know we.
no, you're talking about just for the elevations? So the construction documents, like I said, are all administrative. This only goes to you as this courtesy review, but it doesn't even go to council for that aspect.
Okay.
I do have a question on that. So like, when we get this courtesy review, is it common that the council would have reviewed their own courtesy review prior to our courtesy review, or is it?
Usually it goes in reverse. I don't
I
know
would think.
why, but we also are.
Like I said, council got shown the elevations as part of a different meeting.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, it had
wasn't like-
nothing to
Wasn't a
do with
formal
Marvin
appro-
Commons,
okay,
no.
Gotcha.
That's what I was asking, because I would think it would come.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Back.
all new for us,
Yeah.
like this whole like
Said-
administrative approval is slightly new, so we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
Right,
this,
yes.
I said,
One more question for you, Hunter.
But
Did
only
the
slightly.
original development agreement, did it have those townhomes downtown Short?
it did, yeah.
It did?
Mhm. This is actually the rezoning plan that was approved, is what you're looking at, right here.
But what, the one that they, the engineering plan for the residential, did they add more townhomes or no? It was the same, okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay, do you have a planner's report?
Yeah, I got just two things real quick.
It's just all about you tonight.
yeah,
It's all about you.
No, good discussion. Appreciate all the feedback and comments. But just two things real quick. So comp plan update. I know Kelly's on that working group, but we are in the process, Kimley Horn, our consultants, in the process of drafting kind of that final comprehensive plan report. It will come to you as planning board, and you will, as just like a rezoning, you will review and make a recommendation for it to be adopted to council. They're tentatively looking at a window to having that adopted in between July and early September. So that will be coming to you in between June and August, let's just say that.
This is, sorry to interrupt, but this is a vision document. So just for those who are not as familiar with what this is, it's a vision document that then helps inform our ordinances. It is a litmus test for when zoning applications come in. We will then refer to this document. Does it fit? Does it not fit? And it is long overdue. It is, the one we have is very out of date and does not necessarily reflect the current. So this is going to be really helpful once it's finished and approved.
So yeah, just want to, and we will have another community meeting for that, that date and time. Once again, that will most likely occur in June, but once we have that, that locked in, I'll make sure that planning board's aware, encourage you to attend, to learn about it, as well as, at that point, that's more of a, hey, here's the plan, here's the recommendations, but at the same time, it's still, valid for public participation to give their comments and feedback on it. That can potentially make sure that things are, referenced in the plan or reflected in the plan to meet that. The other thing is that we do have another rezoning application for, it's 3 properties off of Marvin School Road. It's the Vickery property that you guys did a rezoning for or reviewed back probably in September 2024. That'll come to you guys probably in the next couple months. I just want to note that they have scheduled their neighborhood meeting, which once again is the first step in the process of rezoning. It is an applicant, and they're required to have it, but it's their meeting. It's scheduled for, I think, April 29.
Could you say again what the property is?
It's not, yeah, it's, I'll have to get it to, I've already moved my computer down. Yeah, it's down, it's at, basically, it's 3 properties starting at the intersection of Joe Carr and Marvin School Road, heading towards the school, on the right
Okay, I
side,
know
if
what
you
you're
really.
talking
And did you say we've already looked at this in 2024?
No, so it's, that property, was the Vickery rezoning in 2024 that rezoned the property from rural residential to SFR1. A gentleman has purchased that property who owns the adjacent property that's on rural residential. So their request is to basically rezone all 3 properties from rural residential and SFR1 to conditionally SFR2 with a site-specific plan. And yeah, it's a subdivision, they're
He wants
proposing a
he wants
subdivision development.
And this is exactly what we talked about when we initially looked at that one, is that it's just one more step. We approve this, then they're going to take that, and they're going to go for SFR2.
So,
It's
what is
exactly-
the date on the,
They did I mean, just textbook.
just so I can confirm it? It's,
And this is one of the major corridors.
But they also have no plans to widen that road.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone speeds down that road, and that is, it is a rural, that is
So
rural
that section is
residential.
rural residential.
It is rural
currently,
residential.
And they're looking to make it SF.
R2.
yeah, so it's a site-specific plan, once again,
No part of it is SFR2 right now.
correct.
No. They are SFR1, but
That's,
So that neighborhood meeting is here at Village Hall on Monday next week, April 27th at 6 PM. Just letting you guys know if you want to attend, but at the same time, that will be potentially on your guys' agenda at the May meeting, if not June, kind of similar to what we did tonight, kind of that first initial review.
And if you want to attend that, we need to know who's coming, because if more than
Potential quorum.
two of us, we need to.
We'll
announce
probably,
it.
council, I notified council when the notices went out last week, were mailed by the developer, or the applicant. And I think 2 or 3 of them already said they would like to attend, so we'll probably go ahead and just do a potential quorum notice in general for council and planning board. You might take a note,
Have
we'll
the,
get with Dawson.
when do the letters to all the adjoining property owners go out?
The applicant mailed those out last week.
Okay. Is there, I know I asked this for when Pauline was still here, but one of my concerns about those types of meetings, the reason the applicant hosting those meetings is that the feedback that we receive obviously is filtered. We're not getting raw feedback, right? We're getting filtered feedback. So have you guys considered, like I said, could we do a Google form where people could directly, and we could actually see the feedback?
Wait, to be clear, because it's not how it worked back where I'm from, but these meetings are hosted
Welcome to
by-
Marvin.
Oh, my goodness. Goodness gracious, you're telling me the developer hosts that meeting? And not
Yes.
the town, or not the village?
No, that is not the way the law's
That's
written.
lovely. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a requirement per our ordinance that during a specifically conditional rezoning, that the applicant holds a community meeting. And it's, like I said, it's not a village meeting. It's solely for the applicant basically to present, engage, and get that feedback, to, once again, hopefully incorporate into their plan as part of, as it goes through this conditional zoning process.
Yeah. I've always struggled with, though, that they're supposed to be getting the feedback so that they can understand whether or not their plan fits with, within their broader community. But at the same time, it's like, we don't really see the true feedback as the planning board. So how do we
I mean,
help the applicant or discourage the applicant or whatever, and we do have to be, with these rezonings, we have to be very careful because it's not in a conditional district. So
well,
there
no,
are,
I mean, it's a conditional zoning request, yes.
so that would go into, so with these, then we can approve or deny without comment. We don't have to give a reason.
Yes or no?
Yes or no.
Yeah, like I said, it's conditional zoning because they want to do a subdivision to be able to tie that site-specific plan to it. That's what we would advise them to do, and that's what they're moving forward
So
with.
they will have to come with a full, kit and caboodle, and present it. And the way that it'll work is what do you call it? The way that it's, it will be written in a positive. So what is oh my gosh, I'm really tired, sorry.
Yeah.
It'll be in the affirmative, we vote against it. as
Yes,
opposed to-
yes. So, and that throws people off sometimes because it's like, they think that we're all voting for it. And it's like, no, that's just the way that it's
Yeah, the
structured,
public
so,
is confused.
yeah.
Could we, I mean, this is a question for you all, because you work with the town, the village, but is there a way we could use the social media to put a poll out, or a form of some
Social
sort?
media, they're
Or
people
or the
who
town,
come-
or the email list or something, distribute requests for input from the public, rather than just expecting them to come to a meeting? We say, hey, this thing's up for application, and here's a form you could fill out and email it out to the village email list.
That's
On
not the
things
way
like
the
this.
ordinances are written. I mean, and I will say this, we do need to protect the time that, the face time that the people adjacent to the property should get. They should be heard.
Sure,
Their opinions are
You
more
don't, yeah,
important
you blast the whole thing.
on the,
out,
right,
yeah.
right. So it's like, it does, everyone having their opinion is great, but at the same time, the people who are adjacent to those properties need to be the ones that are really sat and listened to and get their feedback in first, because they're the ones who have to live next door to it, so.
So, to try to clarify on some of this, this is, like I said, it's a requirement per our ordinance, but it is a developer-driven meeting. And it is really solely to basically, yes, notify and educate and allow for the adjoining property owners, but it's still a public, open meeting. to participate, learn about it, but it really is to benefit also the developer and really kind of gauging the temperature of what they're proposing and how they can potentially revise that to be more in line with the community vision. Like I said, I've seen it where they don't. I mean, it still goes through the process, but that can ultimately hurt or impact, them potentially getting approved. The overall process is like like I said, these are public meetings, so residents are, invited and are encouraged to attend to provide public comment during that when you guys are considering it. And at the same time, when it goes to council, there's a public hearing, and so that's where it's a village forum type standpoint to get that direct engagement. We don't, since it's a developer meeting, we don't advertise it. We had our conversation with our attorney on this, other stuff, like we do the potential quorum notice, which in a roundabout way probably advertises it on our social media, but we're not going to advertise a meeting that's not necessarily an official village meeting at that point. So
just, when they do these things, what's the radius from like the property line they have to notify?
1,300 feet,
Okay.
which
So
is,
one of the things I've heard from probably 10 to 12 people within Marvin Creek is that a lot of them were not notified. They're hearing it word of mouth, and there's a big concern about that because private common space is right across the street. Is there something we can do to have the Marvin Creek, can you guys request the Marvin Creek HOA share that?
so once again, this is a developer meeting. They are required to notify what our ordinance says. What if they go above and beyond that, they're more than welcome to, but like it's not, you run into, once again, we dealt with this already, is we looked at other municipalities' requirements. Some municipalities don't even define what that radius is. It literally just says like surrounding neighborhoods. It's open for interpretation at that point. 1,300 feet, we were significantly above any other municipality of that. I mean, we did a text amendment to discussion, I think, last May, June on this. But ultimately, I want the public to, be notified and to attend, but that's also, it comes with a cost bear and burden of either the village and or the applicant at that point. And I feel like that's what our attorney had the biggest concern with.
But that to my question before, like, I understand it's not a legal requirement that the village can do so, but is there anything legally preventing the village when something like this comes before the village and their radius is 1,300 feet, that something be posted on, like, via the village email list, whichever thousands of people get, or on the social media platforms saying, hey, we have an application for this. FYI, if you have a question or a comment, submit an email to X, Y, and Z email address. Is there anything preventing us from doing that as a matter of policy? Or is it just like, we're not required to, and we're like not necessarily thinking to?
I don't necessarily have that answer. I just know based off of what, because this has been asked before, is that it's been advised by us from our legal team, like, once again, since this is not a village official meeting, that we don't advertise it, because then you're setting yourself up where you have to do it every time, and I mean, there's just so many different things. We do that potential quorum notice, which in a way is advertising it. We also put all this information on our projects page, so like the only way I can really advise or try to is basically say, like, if you are interested in learning about it, come to the meeting. If you're unable to attend, you're welcome to reach out and ask questions. I'm gonna encourage you to come to the meeting, because that's really what the intent of it is.
And there is a public meeting that Marvin hosts.
Sure.
Later in the process, but this first section is a mailed, like, snail
Yeah, no, I
mail, right?
understand,
And there's a lot of
yeah.
cost there,
Yeah.
especially depending on how dense the surrounding areas are.
But we're aware of it having to occur. So like, we know they have to have this meeting by this point in the process, is what I'm saying, right? Like, we've been noticed and they have their replication.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll actually host the meeting here
Yeah.
at the Village Hall.
So I'm just wondering if there's a way mechanically and administratively, we could say, when we get these sort of applications, we put notice out to the community proactively that this is occurring, not case by case, but just like in an automated fashion almost. It's an application for a subdivision or a rezoning.
So I
This
get
has
that,
been
but like,
received by the village.
what is the upside of, like, there is a point in the process when everyone does know about it, right?
I don't know if there is.
But like, let me just give you an example of what I have actually seen happen. So people come to a meeting, the residents who are actually going to be affected by the application don't get a chance to speak, get their questions asked. Do you know what I mean? Because other people are involved and that aren't in that 1,300, circumference, surround.
Sure.
So if we make everything public all the time and everything's getting promoted and anyone, you could end up hurting the individuals who are actually going to be affected most in that first meeting, right?
But I think Chris's idea was, let's give them a way to talk to us directly without necessarily inviting them to the meeting. So just like,
Right.
do you have feedback? And here's how you submit that.
So then, right, and I'm only playing devil's advocate here. The staff only has so much time to go through that, collect it. Like, it adds an additional administrative burden on the staff to collect that. That's one of the reasons so that's one of the, I asked that the people who were being invited to the first meeting, it gets captured electronically. And that was not possible at the time because they only have so much time. They're wearing multiple hats. So just,
I think it's a give and a take, obviously, right? Like, we don't want to like overburden the staff or anything, but.
right,
So
but
if
we've got a lot of people trying not to overburden the staff, but they're still burdening staff. So it's like,
Sure.
what's the balance? Like, what's the,
I mean, could you automate it? So like it's a listserv?
that's technology and.
It's questions, right? Like,
Yeah,
It's all-
like could it
it's
be
all-
automated where it's a listserv, they email that listserv, it automatically goes to planning board and/or council, not to inundate people with emails, but then the staff doesn't have to touch it?
Yeah, I mean, there are ways you can submit a Microsoft form in which all inputs are put into a spreadsheet and everyone can access it and no one has to do anything other than just set up the initial form, which should be a standard form
Christina?
theoretically.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to interject real quick and just say that the main reason we haven't done this in the past, and it's definitely something we can entertain with council to see if they're interested, but we've had issues in the past where we've had these development meetings, and there's a level of expectation that the public has where we have very similar questions to what you guys had tonight. Where are the stormwater plans? Where are the grading plans? When they're not ready to, at that point in the phase of the project, we're not ready to have those types of plans. So there's kind of this expectation that we are the know-all be-all with what's desired in the community. And so we just get inundated with some of the questions and requests, and we just don't have those answers. So that's one of the reasons as well.
That's a good point.
Sure.
I mean, and so like what I try to do is, like I said, they send the notices out. I try, if it's, if there's a council meeting in between, I always mention to that during my planner's update to council as well as to you guys when our monthly meetings. And, my goal of that is anybody that is interested or listening, to take note of it because it's hard to, at the end of the day, those meetings are really, yes, like first focus is for those main adjoining affected property owners, but we still do want the public to be involved and be in the know. And that's why we do have our projects page. They can follow along on that process. We put tentative and scheduled dates on when it's going to be on planning board and council, because then it really then goes to those individuals that want to be a part of the process or want to make sure that their opinions and voices are heard, are provided those opportunities and are notified of those opportunities that way to come and participate. So
Other items?
that's all I got.
Okay. So review of action items, there's maybe one.
Outside of the elevate, I think we'll just say the
Outside the
elevation.
elevations, yeah. I think that was everything. So board member comments. Bob, could we start with you?
I'm good, thank you, and welcome to all the new board members here. That's great.
John?
Yes, I'd like to take just a little bit of time, and I would like to address the WSOC news piece about Marvin. They spoke to me, not as a member of the planning board, but as a longtime resident of Marvin. For those new members of the council, mayor, new planning board, et cetera, who don't know me, I started construction of my house on Heritage Oaks Lane in Labor Day weekend of 1982 and moved in May of '83. I was involved in the incorporation of Marvin, which took 3 attempts to get the state legislature to approve it. I've been a member of the planning board for over 8 years, and between my 2 times on the board. And I've always been proud of the board, which had many, many different opinions and visions, but we openly discussed and arrived at a recommendation to the council that were not what any of us would have done on our own. Now, the new administration, all of which are relatively new residents of Marvin, think that they know Marvin well, are going to change it to make it better by micromanaging everyone and everything in the village. I see them like so many other new residents who feel that now they're lucky enough to live here, they don't want anyone else to come. If I had that attitude, there wouldn't have been a Firethorn or any of the other developments that followed. Evidently, the mayor isn't happy with my thought that Marvin's identity is only a group of separate subdivisions without a cohesive central identity that will bring everyone in those subdivisions together. As I previously said, I was very proud of the professional way that the planning board has performed its responsibilities. And what I see coming now is a change to a bunch of yes men and women to do just as they were told. Therefore, I no longer feel that I'll be able to contribute to the future of Marvin, and I submit my resignation effective immediately.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Whether you want that or it goes to Austin or wherever.
I'll make sure he gets it.
All right.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate all that you've done. I've learned a lot from you. I've laughed a lot with you. We've disagreed together.
That's the objective.
Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree. But thank you for serving all these years, and I'm sorry that this has come to this. So, Mark, if you're still there, do you have a comment?
I am still here, and I think I'll hold my comments until we can meet in person.
Great, thank you. Well, we look forward to meeting you. Welcome aboard.
No comments other than Mark, Chris, Kristen. Welcome to the planning board and looking forward to working with you guys.
Chris?
Well, I'm sorry to see you go, but as one of those new residents, and I guess potentially one of the yes men you're thinking of, I'm not a yes man, and I'm happy to be here as part of a very rural area and try to preserve it that way. You know, I've got 5 kids in the schools here, and I don't really appreciate any characterization that anyone who is appointed or is newer has any less of an investment in this village's future or this region's future than folks who were here prior to us. We came here because we love it here and want to keep it that way. So I'm just going to push back a little on that, though I appreciate your service to the village.
John, thank you so much for your service. It's a big undertaking. I'm often criticized for being new here, and what people don't often know is
You're
that
passionate.
Well, I am passionate. They are aware of that, I think, Kelly. What they're not aware of is my husband poured a majority of the concrete, and I don't mean as a developer. I mean as a finisher and a concrete mixer driver. So he was integral to the development of Marvin, which is part of the reason I know so much about it. And I'm hoping to utilize that information. You know, John, I wish we had gotten the chance to work together, as I am not a yes man, but I am very passionate about specific things and rural character, and not mecking my union is one of those. So I do wish you well, and thank you. But I also look forward to working, Marcus, with you. It was good to get to see you a little bit during the campaigning. And I noticed you were one of the top vote getters after Marvin United. So Chris Day, I look forward to working with you. And Kelly, I know you, but I look forward to working with you as well. And Mark, that goes for you as well.
Just so you guys are aware, first of all, thank you both. Thank you all. I know Mark will learn more about you through the process, but thank you to the two of you for showing up ready to work and prepared. Most people don't always do that, so I really, really appreciate that. And we're not told. I didn't know that you had been appointed until today. So I didn't want you to think that it was a surprise. I had no idea that anyone was being interviewed, someone had been appointed, that you had gone through any kind of training. So we've been a little bit blindsided. Like, we're not necessarily kept in the loop. So excuse our surprise when people just show up, because we truly didn't know you were coming. So, but I look forward to working with you all and learning more about you and what motivates you, and arguing with you and agreeing with you, and all the above. So I also want to say happy birth to Hattie officially, baby Hattie. We're very glad to have you back, Hunter. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Well, I didn't want to leave out Bob, so I look forward to working with you too, Bob. Motion to adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Thank you, everyone.